Chapter 479. Simply have no sense of shame. Yin Xiaoman is simply going crazy. Looking at Di Beichen's gentle manner towards Bailey Hongzhuang, it stimulates her heart even more. This man is completely unmoved when facing her, but when he lowers his head to look at the woman beside him, the gentleness in his eyes is so thick that it can't be dispersed. Jealous. Dense jealousy burns in her heart, even if the other party is a poor ghost, but she has to admit that she is indeed somewhat jealous of this woman. Just now I don't know who was the one who wanted to throw herself at him, wanted to be the second wife, but was rejected. Now you're blaming me, the first wife? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckles, her phoenix eyes full of disdain. Yin Xiaoman's face turns pale. Her gaze unconsciously looks towards Guan Yi. She doesn't want Guan Yi to know this. But looking at Guan Yi's gloomy face, she knows that Guan Yi must have believed her. Brother Yi, don't listen to her nonsense. Yin Xiaoman quickly says. The man in front of her is already impossible. She can't lose Guan Yi. Otherwise, wouldn't she be drawing water with a bamboo basket? Just as Guan Yi unwillingly prepares to open his mouth again, he sees Di Beichen wave his hand and dozens of immortal talismans appear on the counter. Exchange for this immortal pill furnace. What do you need? You choose. Looking at the pile of immortal talismans in front of him, the attendant is completely dumbfounded. Immortal talismans have always been very useful for cultivators, but immortal talisman masters have always been extremely rare, much rarer than alchemists. Because in the lower planes, the inheritance of talisman techniques is often broken, and the people who master talisman techniques are only a minority. Adding on the fact that talisman techniques are obscure and difficult to understand, many people who have cultivated to this realm are not willing to spend time and effort to study it. Therefore, the price of immortal talismans is higher than pills. Their Thousand Treasures Pavilion also sells immortal talismans, but compared to pills, the number and types of immortal talismans are much less. However, the man in front of them casually took out dozens of immortal talismans. Who knows how many he didn't take out? How extravagant is this? Yin Xiaoman and Guan Yi are also completely dumbfounded. Didn't he say he has no money? Why does he have so many immortal talismans have no money? Was he purposely teasing them? Even though the price of an immortal talisman was not as high as an immortal pill furnace, the price of any immortal talisman was in the tens of thousands. Most importantly, these immortal talismans seemed to be of decent quality. The attendant had stayed in the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion for a long time. Even if he didn't know anything about runes, he could identify them very quickly. Soon, he picked out 2 immortal talismans and placed the rest in front of Di Beichen. He no longer looked down on Di Beichen and said flatteringly, "Young master, these 2 are enough." 2. Guan Yi's expression turned even uglier. 100,000 blood spirit stones for only 2 celestial talismans was enough to show how high the grade of these celestial talismans was. This Xiao Bai face whom he had mocked for being poor for half a day was actually so rich. For a moment, he only felt a burning pain on his face. Di Beichen casually put away the remaining immortal talismans. He had been studying the art of runes all this time. With the guidance of his master, his attainments in the art of runes had improved rapidly. Chapter 480. Yin Xiaoman looks at Bailey Hongzhuang with an increasingly angry gaze. These 2 guys are doing this on purpose. They clearly have so many immortal talismans, yet they deliberately took out those kind of pills. Isn't it just to make them lose face? You really know how to act. You actually took out those ordinary pills. This is the first time I've seen a woman who can act like you. Yin Xiaoman fiercely looks at Bailey Hongzhuang. Anger surges in her heart, and a thick sense of humiliation surges in her heart. Bailey Hongzhuang looks at Yin Xiaoman like she's looking at an idiot. In front of this kind of guy, does she even need to act? What does it have to do with you? Her cold voice is as cold as ever. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly takes back the pills. Although she doesn't know the price of these pills, but just these immortal talismans are enough for their daily cultivation needs of blood spirit stones. After being humiliated time and time again, Yun Xiao Man is already unable to restrain her anger. Now that she's being despised by Bailey Hongzhuang, the anger in her heart bursts out even more. I actually want to see what kind of trash pills you have. Xiao Man. Guan Yi also didn't expect Yin Xiao Man to suddenly make such an outrageous move. Just as he opens his mouth, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have time to put away one of the pill bottles as directly waved over by Yun Xiao Man's hand. Round pills roll out from the white porcelain bottle, emitting a tempting fragrance, whether it's Yun Xiao Man, Guan Yi, or that attendant. None of them put Bailey Hongzhuang's pills in their heart. In their view, these pills must be useless trash. Only when they clearly see the appearance of the pills, everyone's expression can't help but change. Third grade immortal spirit pills? Yin Xiao Man stares blankly at the pills rolling out. The grade of immortal spirit pills is very easy to judge. Even if one isn't an immortal alchemist, one only needs to clearly see the patterns on the immortal spirit pills to know the grade of the pills. She doesn't know what kind of pills these are, but each pill has 3 patterns on it. Guan Yi is also stunned. Just now, there were dozens of immortal talismans. Now there are dozens of immortal spirit pills. This is going against the heavens. Was this the poor guy that Yun Xiao Man spoke of? If they could be called poor, then they were probably poor to death, right? After all, this was only one bottle of pills in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. Judging from the situation she took out just now, there were many bottles. The waiter's expression was petrified. He didn't know what to say, nor did he know what expression he should use to face all of this. Recalling the scene of Bailey Hongzhuang haggling with him, the corners of his lips couldn't help but twitch. Was he deliberately teasing him? The most important thing was he had really believed it before. Miss, you knocked down so many of my immortal pills. Are you going to compensate me? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, and her ink-black phoenix eyes revealed a trace of coldness. This woman was simply too troublesome. Yin Xiaoman's expression stiffened. With just a glance, she could tell that there were more than a dozen pills. More than a dozen third-grade immortal pills. This value, I was just careless and accidentally touched it. Yin Xiaoman raised her head. Although it was a matter-of-course tone, it inexplicably revealed a bit of guilt. More than a dozen third-grade immortal spirit pills. If she were to compensate, then she would become a pauper. Bailey Hongzhuang lazily glanced at Yin Xiaoman, too lazy to bicker with her. This kind of person, she had seen too many. Chapter 6481. Yin Xiaoman was originally on guard against Bailey Hongzhuang asking for too much. Seeing that the other party didn't say much, she was relieved. But looking at the other party's appearance of being too lazy to pay attention to her, as if she was a clown from the beginning to the end, her heart felt even more uncomfortable. If the other party directly jumped up to compete with her, she would feel better. However, the other party's casual and indifferent appearance made her even more beautiful and elegant like a lotus. Brother, Yin Xiaoman turned her head to look at Guan Yi. She didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to buy the alchemy furnace like this, but she couldn't think of any other way. Isn't the shopkeeper of the 1,000 Treasures Pavilion your uncle? He's so good to you. You just need to tell him that you don't want to sell this alchemy furnace. Hearing this, a trace of hesitation appeared in Guan Yi's eyes. My uncle is really good to me, but he's not here at all. It's too late for us to go invite him now. He also didn't want Di Baichen to leave like this, and he also understood that if he asked his uncle to do so, his uncle would definitely agree. However, as a nephew, he didn't want to affect his uncle's business. However, Yin Xiaoman was very dissatisfied. So what? As long as you give the order directly, do you think they would dare to disobey your orders? Xiaoman, Guan Yi frowned slightly. He also came to Shiyin's city not long ago. Ever since he came, his uncle has been taking care of him in every way possible, so he has always made up his mind to not cause trouble for his uncle. If he did this today, he didn't know how to explain it. At this moment, a middle-aged man slowly walked in from outside. After seeing Guan Yi, the man's face suddenly revealed a smile. Here, why are you here today? Xiaoman is also here. Uncle. Guan Yi's face revealed a trace of a smile. After seeing the middle-aged man come, Yin Xiaoman's eyes lit up, and a thick excitement appeared on her face. Just as she was thinking the shopkeeper came. Didn't this mean that even the heavens were helping her? Thinking of this, Yun Xiaoman quickly restrained her original excitement and turned it into a kind of sadness and loss. Noticing Yun Xiaoman's expression, the man couldn't help but frown and asked with concern, "Xiaoman, could it be that something happened? Did Ear bully you?" "It's not like that." Yun Xiaoman hurriedly shook her head. "Brother, he has always been very good to me. It's just that I recently managed to save enough money to buy this immortal pill furnace. I never thought that someone else would take a step ahead of me. I'm just a little disappointed." As she spoke, Yun Xiaoman lowered her head again. Her expression was filled with loneliness and desolation. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun turned around and prepared to leave after the waiter finished settling the bill. Although they also noticed that there was another person behind them who also knew Yun Xiaoman, they didn't have the intention to understand. However, just as the two of them were about to leave, the middle-aged man who appeared later blocked their path. "Please wait." Hearing this, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned cold almost at the same time. Could it be that they didn't have enough trouble just now? Yun Xiaoman still didn't give up and changed to another person to persuade them. Chapter 64-82. Seeing Guan Hongtian venting his anger for her without saying a word, Yun Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a hint of joy. She knew that this would be the result. Originally, her relationship with Guan Yi had not been confirmed, so there was a certain distance between them. However, after what had happened just now, she felt that Guan Yi was not bad. As long as she could take back the elixir furnace today and let her vent her anger in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, she did not mind giving Guan Yi a chance. Guan Yi did not expect that his uncle would stand up for him without any hesitation. When he came to his senses, he was very happy. Indeed, his uncle was the shopkeeper of the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion. The 10,000 Treasures Pavilion was not an ordinary shop, but a shop in the immortal realm. Many years ago, because they knew that there were many cultivators in the chaotic immortal realm, the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion gradually built some shops in the cities of the chaotic immortal realm. As time passed, more and more shops appeared, but there was only one shop in each city. Many of the treasures in the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion came from the immortal realm. Coupled with the power behind the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, no one dared to be disrespectful to the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion. The fact that his uncle could become the shopkeeper of the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion in Shiyun City had proved his ability. In fact, this identity alone was enough for him to stand firm in Shiyun City, and no one could easily shake him. As long as his uncle said the word, this elixir furnace could be taken away. Previously, he had been slapped in the face repeatedly by Di Beichun, so he was very unhappy in his heart. However, when he thought of Di Beichun's expression after the elixir furnace was taken back, he felt very happy. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She did not expect that the shopkeeper of the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion would be Guan Yi's uncle. No wonder Guan Yi was so generous. She had only wanted to buy a convenient immortal pill furnace, but she had actually caused so much trouble. It really made people unhappy. What if I say no? Di Beichun raised his eyes. His deep eyes were as dark as the night, and there was not the slightest emotion in them. Guan Hongtian's face also turned cold. Thinking back to Yun Xiaoman's aggrieved look, he immediately understood that Xiaoman and Guan he must have already discussed with them and were rejected, perhaps even humiliated. Thinking of this, Guan Hongtian's gaze turned even colder. There is actually someone who dared to bully his nephew in his shop? I'm a shopkeeper of the Wan Bao Pavilion. If I say I'm not selling this, then you can't take it away. Going back on their word. So this is how Wan Bao Pavilion does business? Di Beichun raised his eyebrows slightly. His unparalleled face seemed to be covered with a layer of 10,000-year-old ice. It's not up to you to question how I do business. Guan Hongtian's expression was also very ugly. Now, give me the immortal elixir furnace. Behind Guan Hongtian, Yun Xiaoman was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smug expression. She wanted to see what this woman could do. Beichen, let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang was as cold as ice. After all, this was the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion. If the other party was not willing to sell, then there was nothing they could do. Just buying an elixir furnace had already caused so much trouble. She also felt that it was a pity that the elixir furnace fell into Yun Xiaoman's hands. Okay. Di Beichen nodded and held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Chapter 6483. Coward. Upon hearing these two words, Bailey Hongzhuang's cold gaze shot directly towards Guan Yi. This guy who bullies others because of his master's position actually dared to insult her man? Her cold gaze was as sharp as a knife, revealing a vigorous, murderous aura. The surrounding temperature seemed to drop in an instant, and the terrifying aura made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. At that moment, Guan Yi saw the color of blood in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Her dark pupils seemed to turn red for a moment, and an endless sea of corpses erupted, engulfing his soul. Thump, thump. Guan Yi couldn't help but take 2 steps back, and his face turned deathly pale for a moment. This woman is so scary. He originally thought she was just a flower vase, but after seeing her eyes, he understood this woman was definitely not simple. Clang! The immortal elixir furnace fell heavily to the ground. Guan Hongtian's hand was still in the air, and his face was stiff. When he looked at Di Beichen again, his eyes were filled with anger. Sorry, my hand shook, Di Beichen said indifferently, looking at Di Beichen's calm and unperturbed face, without the slightest bit of surprise, even the slightest bit of apology. Who wouldn't know that he was doing it on purpose? Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other, and they were completely speechless. Even if you want to pretend, you should at least put in some effort. What is he trying to do with such a normal expression? Well, they also knew that their male master didn't have any intention of returning the immortal elixir furnace. Since this immortal elixir furnace couldn't fall into the hands of their female master, it naturally couldn't fall into the hands of others. Brat, you did it on purpose. Guan Hongtian's face turned gloomy in an instant. Unlike his previous idle threat, his malicious gaze was like a poisonous snake, and his tyrannical aura instantly lingered. The atmosphere of the entire Wan Bao pavilion froze in an instant, revealing a cold and terrifying aura. Yin Xiaoman didn't expect Di Beichen to pull himself together, and the smile on her face suddenly became very comical. Uncle Guan, this guy is too hateful. Do you know the price of damaging my Wan Bao pavilion's things? Guan Hongtian said darkly. There was no longer any light in his eyes, only coldness. We were the ones who bought this immortal pill furnace, but the shopkeeper said he needed it, so we returned it to you. Logically speaking, if you didn't manage to catch it, it shouldn't have anything to do with us. However, I have always been a kind person, so I won't take back the 100,000 immortal spirit stones. With just 2 simple sentences, Di Beichen had completely cleared himself of all responsibility. Guan Yi and the others were dumbfounded. It was Di Beichen who had broken it. However, they were now pushing all the blame onto Guan Hongtian. The most important thing was that Guan Hongtian's expression of, "I'm not going to argue with you," directly ignited their anger. Damn it, she had never seen such a despicable man. Brat, I think you still don't know the status of my myriad treasure pavilion in Xi'an City. If you dare to play with me like this, you'll have to pay with your life. There was no trace of smile on Guan Hongtian's face, and his cold voice was like a ghastly wind blowing past everyone's ears. However, just as the atmosphere of the Wan Bao Pavilion was about to reach the freezing point, Di Beichen's lips slowly curled into a smile. A burst of clear laughter seemed to have broken through the enchantment, breaking the chilling atmosphere. Chapter 6484. The sinister laughter was especially eerie in this tense atmosphere. Even Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman, who were waiting to see a joke, had a change of expression. Previously, this man had been extremely cold, but the moment he smiled, they felt that he had become even more dangerous. It was like the cold gleam of a sword being unsheathed. It was dazzling and could not be looked at directly. I really admire the business methods of the Thousand Treasures Pavilion. Di Beichen slowly looked up. His long and narrow eyes were covered with ice. Shopkeeper, how are you going to make me pay? Both Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent on the surface, but they had already sized up their surroundings. To be able to open such a big shop in the chaotic Immortal Realms Cloud City, and to be able to sell such high-quality items, this person must be quite powerful in Cloud City. From the moment Guan Hongtian appeared, they had already noticed his cultivation level. At least, he had not broken through to the elementary Immortal Realm. As their master had said, it was too difficult to break through from the Radiant Sun stage to the elementary Immortal Realm. If a cultivator broke through to the elementary Immortal Realm, it would not be difficult to enter the chaotic Immortal Realm. In the chaotic Immortal Realm, most cultivators were at the Radiant Sun stage, but there was no lack of elementary Immortal Realm cultivators. As long as they were careful not to offend such an opponent, with their strength, they could still travel freely in this place. Originally, the two of them did not want to cause any trouble, but trouble just had to come to them. Blindly enduring and giving in had never been their principle in life. Moreover, they had stayed in the abandoned immortal forest for so long, and it had been a long time since they had a proper exercise. If the other party wanted to fight, they would at most accompany them. They just needed to withdraw before the other party's helpers arrived. Stinking brat, you're courting death. Guan Hongtian could be considered a big shot in Xi'an City. Most people would give him some face when they saw him, but these two reckless youngsters actually dared to make him lose face in front of his juniors. If he didn't teach them a lesson, how would he be able to show his face in Xi'an City in the future? Bang! A violent punch mixed with a terrifying force fiercely attacked Di Beichen's face. The distance between the two of them was already very close to begin with. So this punch arrived in the blink of an eye. The air seemed to explode in an instant. Even Bailey Hongzhuang, Guan Yi, and the others could feel the dense qi energy clearly. A trace of ridicule appeared in Yun Xiaoman's eyes. This guy really thought he was so great that he dared to fight Uncle Guan head-on. Wasn't this just courting death? Bang! Di Beichen took a step back and threw out a punch. Before their fists even touched, the force behind their fists had already whistled through the air. The shelves on both sides began to tremble in an instant. After seeing this scene, the waiters hurriedly protected the shelves on the side. This fight wasn't a big deal, but if the things on the shelves were destroyed, then their loss would be huge. Yin Xiaoman and Guan, he didn't pay attention to this. Their attention was completely focused on Di Beichen and Guan Hongtian. Don't look at this as the most ordinary punch. Often, through the collision of the two fists, one could determine who had the upper hand. However, until the two of them retracted their fists, they actually did not notice that Di Beichen had fallen into a disadvantageous position. Chapter 6485. Guan Hongtian was already very unhappy that his punch did not injure Di Beichen. Now that he was mercilessly mocked, his face turned even more ashen. However, Di Beichen's words were not without reason. Everything in his 1,000 treasures pavilion was very valuable. It was indeed not suitable to fight here. All right, let's go out and fight. Guan Hongtian's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness. Before he left, he gave Guan Yi a look. Guan Yi could not help but be shocked when he saw his uncle's look. His uncle actually wanted him to go out and find someone? So, does this mean that even with his uncle's strength, he would not be able to easily defeat Di Beichen? This guy clearly does not look very old. How is that possible? Bailey Hongzhuang followed Di Beichen out of the 1,000 Treasures Pavilion. As she walked out, she noticed Guan Yi whispering in her ear. Her eyes flashed sharply. Di Beichen finished this quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice. A cold look appeared in her eyes. From Guan Hongtian's business attitude, it was clear that he was not a kind person. Moreover, he did not have any principles. Although he said that he wanted to fight one-on-one, he had already made up his mind to fight as a group. Hearing this, Di Beichen's eyes flashed sharply. He understood what was going on. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other. They felt helpless. This was only their first day in Xi'an City. Perhaps they would have to move soon. Stinking brat. I'll teach you how to behave today. Guan Hongtian attacked Di Beichen again. When they exchanged blows, he realized that although this brat looked very young, his strength was very stable. His cultivation had stagnated at the Radiant Sun stage for many years. Although he had not broken through to the elementary celestial stage, it did not mean that his strength had not improved. Even if he had cultivated to this level, where time would not easily show on his face, he was still certain that this fellow in front of him was really very young. Baichen's handsome eyes were slightly cold, and his calm and serene eyes were suffused with a trace of cold light. His killing intent unconsciously erupted. This time, he didn't just stand there and wait for Guanhongtian to attack. Instead, he took the initiative to attack. He wanted to know the difference between him and the cultivators from the realm of chaotic immortal during the few years he spent cultivating in the abandoned immortal forest. A destructive aura swept out. Baichen's figure was like a ghost. Under the guidance of his master, he had improved greatly in all aspects compared to before. Boom, boom, boom. Every move looked ordinary, but when the two of them collided, every move was fatal. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly at the side. Senior Zhong Li had never accepted disciples. If Senior Meng had not provoked him, Beichen would not have been able to become his disciple. However, after Beichen learned from Senior Zhong Li, she completely understood why her grandmother and the others were so afraid of him. It was because Senior Zhong Li's strength was really terrifying. Even with Beichen's hardworking personality, he almost couldn't persevere. His requirements were just too strict. Zhong Limu originally thought that his grandfather was already strict enough with him, but after seeing the intensity of Beichen's cultivation, he understood how kind his grandfather was to him. Chapter 6486. After Beichen and Guanhongtian unleashed their full power, each of their moves carried an earth-shattering aura. Both of them were like a whirlwind. Every move of Guanhongtian's was so powerful that it could make a deep hole in the ground at any time. Beichen was different. His figure was more graceful. Although his strength was not small, it was more like he was floating in the wind. The angle of his attacks was tricky. Under such circumstances, Guanhongtian had to be careful. The angle of this guy's attack was too tricky. If he was careless and was hit in the vital part, he would be severely injured. He had stayed in the Cloud City for so many years and had fought many times. However, this guy in front of him was too evil. He was clearly stronger than him, but he couldn't land a single hit on him. This feeling of punching cotton made him very unhappy. The Wanbao Pavilion had always been quite influential in the Cloud City. At this moment, when they saw the shopkeeper fighting in front of the shop, it immediately attracted a lot of people. However, these people were just here to watch the fun. In the realm of chaotic celestial chaos, fighting was a common thing. People would start a fight if they didn't agree with each other. Many people died here every day. The shopkeeper of the Wanbao Pavilion is fighting with someone. This guy is really brave. You know Guanhongtian's temper. Usually, there are a lot of people who fight with him, but this guy is so handsome. Who is this guy? I have never seen him before. Originally, the crowd just wanted to watch the fun. No matter who won or lost, it was just a topic for them to talk about. However, when the group of women saw the man's face, they were instantly stunned. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman didn't expect Beichen to be able to fight with Guanhongtian for such a long time. In their hearts, they knew that this man was also very powerful. No wonder he didn't feel guilty when he saw them. It was because he was very confident. Yun Xiaoman's eyes changed slightly. She thought that Beichen was a poor guy, so she felt a little better after being rejected. However, when she saw Beichen take out the celestial talisman, his strength, and the doting smile on Beichen's face when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, she was even more jealous. If such a man could show her such a gentle smile, even if he was a poor guy, she wouldn't care. When she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, the jealousy in her heart became stronger. As long as this woman was killed, everything was possible. This woman was destined to be a stumbling block. Brother E, the helpers won't be here for a while. Uncle Guan can't fight with this man in a short time. Why don't we kill this woman? As long as this woman is taken hostage, he will lose his mind. Hearing this, a hint of hesitation appeared in Guan Yi's eyes. This woman's strength might not be simple. Just now, with just a glance, he had already found out how terrifying she was. So what? Yin Xiaoman didn't take it seriously. Can't you and I defeat her together? If she is really powerful, she would have already done it. Why would she just stand aside? In my opinion, it must be this man who protects her. She is nothing. Chapter 6487. Brother E, don't tell me you're having tender feelings for her. Seeing Guan E hesitating for a long time without agreeing, Yin Xiaoman frowned with a trace of anger in her eyes. Guan E quickly shook his head. That's not it. I just feel that we should wait for the helper to come. Anyway, he can't win against my uncle. The other party is now sweeping the face of Wan Bao Pavilion. If we don't do anything, won't we be seen as a joke? Yin Xiaoman snorted. If you don't want to help, then I'll do it myself. Seeing Yin Xiaoman's resolute attitude, Guan Yi helplessly said, I promise you. But when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt that this woman who looked calm and collected wasn't simple. Because if it was an ordinary person in this situation, they would be somewhat flustered. But the woman in front of him was so calm that it was unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang was watching the confrontation between Di Beichen and Guan Hongtian. Looking at the current situation, Guan Hongtian was completely powerless. His attack couldn't really land on Di Beichen's body, which meant that he couldn't do anything to him. At this time, a strong wind suddenly came. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even look and blocked it with a palm. Pong! Yin Xiaoman was actually pushed back 2 steps by Bailey Hongzhuang's careless palm. Obviously, she had been storing up her strength for a long time, but Bailey Hongzhuang just casually responded in a hurry. This kind of gap. The winner was obvious. Miss, you really like to do these things that can't see the light of day. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Yin Xiaoman with ridicule, but a trace of cold light flashed through the depths of her eyes. This woman is really troublesome. If it wasn't for this woman's arrogance, there wouldn't be so many twists and turns today. However, she actually wanted to take the opportunity to sneak attack her. Her vicious thoughts were without a doubt. Originally, she didn't intend to make things too big, but the other party had already bullied her. If she still didn't do anything, then she wouldn't be her. After her attack was blocked, Yin Xiaoman's face was also very ugly. She gave Guan Yi a look, and the two of them immediately attacked together. Yin Xiaoman and Guan Yi actually joined hands to deal with this woman I've never seen before. It seems like this woman's strength is not simple. I don't know what happened, but it's too embarrassing for 2 people to fight one. There's something you don't know. Isn't the Myriad Treasure Pavilion best at bullying others? Ganging up is their habit. Everyone shook their heads, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with a trace of regret. Facing the 2 of them working together, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly chuckled. Do you think you're the only ones with helpers? As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Yin Xiaoman and Guan Yi's complexion slightly changed. They had already gone to look for people at the first moment, but now their people still hadn't arrived. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang's people had already arrived? If so, wouldn't it be more troublesome for them? The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's white hand flicked. Xiao Hei go. Yin Xiaoman saw a white stone smashing towards her and heard Bailey Hongzhuang's order. She couldn't help but be on guard against her surroundings, not knowing who was going to make a move on her. In her view, Bailey Hongzhuang's casual swing of the stone was just to deliberately distract her. A stone? What kind of power could it have? Playing this kind of trick now was simply a joke. Chapter 6488. Not only Yin Xiaoman, even the other people were also searching in the crowd, not knowing where the helper that this woman was talking about was. Yin Xiaoman continued to search, but did not notice that the stone that she had overlooked was actually gradually becoming bigger in the air, and at the same time, a fist fiercely struck her abdomen. It was not that she did not split her attention to deal with this stone, but she was just casually dealing with it. Because at their cultivation level, a stone could not even break through their body's defense. All of a sudden, a terrifying power attacked her, completely beyond her guard. Pong! Under this attack, Yin Xiaoman's figure flew out, sliding on the ground for tens of meters before coming to a stop. At the same time, everyone discovered that at the place where Yun Xiao Man was originally standing, unknowingly, a white fur ball had appeared there. Its soft white fur felt great to the touch, and its round figure coupled with its round eyes made it look exceptionally cute. It was like a harmless pillow that made people want to hug it. What is this? Everyone stared blankly at the sudden appearance of the fur ball. A fist directly sent Yun Xiao Man flying. Although there was an element of luck, but was enough to prove that its strength was extremely terrifying. Oh my, could this be a demonic beast? Is there such a unique demonic beast in this world? This is too cute. Hugging it while sleeping is simply too comfortable. A group of women's eyes flashed with sparkling light. Their expressions were impressively written with cuteness. Too cute. Although everyone was very clear that the more terrifying a contract beast looked, the more powerful it was, but this kind of contract beast, women really could not resist. Compared to those contract beasts that looked terrifying, this kind of contract beast was simply too cute. Xiaohei saw that everyone liked it so much. A trace of pride appeared in its eyes. Its charm was not small. Yun Xiaoman climbed up. Only then did she notice that she was actually sent flying by such a fur ball. Her face immediately became even more ugly. This kind of fellow, where did it come from? Damn it, it was really too hateful. After a short moment of surprise, Guan Yi quickly came back to his senses. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. This woman's contracted beast was really independent. He did know of some good-looking contract beasts, but they were usually useless in the lower planes. Some are only used for ornamental purposes. In the immortal realm, almost every cultivator had a contract beast. However, because everyone had ascended from the lower planes, the level of their contracted beasts was naturally not too high. It would be best if he could encounter a growth-type demonic beast. However, most demonic beasts had limited room for growth. Furthermore, with their current cultivation level, many contracted demonic beasts could already transform into human form. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast looked very cute, it still hadn't transformed into a human form. It was obvious that it didn't have any strength at all. Apart from occasionally being used as an opportunistic tactic, it didn't have any other effects. She actually didn't find it embarrassing to have such a contracted beast. Take his own contracted beast, for example. He rarely let it appear in front of others because it was too weak. Chapter 6489. Xiao Bai, get ready. After all, Xiao He and Xiao Bai were the contracted beasts created by the Dark Holy Sun and Holy Maiden of Light, respectively. They were different from other contracted beasts from the lower realms. They originally belonged to this realm. Therefore, when they were cultivating, the cultivation of the two little fellows did not fall behind. Since they were all in the Radiant Sun realm, when these two little fellows unleashed their strength, the situation changed from 1 against 2 to 3 against 2. After seeing Xiao He steal the limelight, Xiao Bai couldn't wait to show off. Now that he heard his mistress order, he naturally rushed out immediately. When Guan Yi saw that Bailey Hongzhuang actually planned to use the same trick on him, he naturally wouldn't be fooled again. When he saw the black stone bouncing toward him, he quickly dodged it. Although Yun Xiaoman stood up from her performance, it could be seen that the strength of that move was extremely shocking. Seeing that Guan Yi dodged, Bailey Hongzhuang obviously expected it. Under Guan Yi's astonished gaze, black stones flew towards him. Seeing this scene, Guan Yi was also dumbfounded. So many? After dodging more than 10 stones in a row, Guan Yi was a little dazed when he saw the stones land on the ground in an ordinary manner. They were actually just ordinary stones. Is this Guan Yi stupid? Every cultivator only has one contracted beast, and that contracted beast has already appeared. Does he still think that there are others? Haha, look at his nervous expression. I'm afraid he really thinks so. Guan Yi, who originally didn't understand, immediately understood after hearing everyone's mocking words. How could he forget this point? In an instant, Guan Yi's face was darker than the bottom of a pot. Thinking back to how he dodged in every possible way, it was simply a joke. However, this also aroused the anger in his heart. This woman actually dared to trick him. I'm going to teach you a good lesson. Guan Yi's footsteps flew, and he quickly attacked Bailey Hongzhuang. However, facing Guan Yi, who was closing the distance, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't seem to feel it at all. Stones continued to shoot out. Ridiculous. Guan Yi casually waved his hand, completely ignoring these stones. He was about to die from anger. At this moment, the corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up into an almost invisible smile, with a hint of enchanting and playfulness. Xiao Bai go. Bang! Just as Guan Yi was getting closer and closer to Bailey Hongzhuang, ignoring the pebbles, a terrifying wave of air suddenly swept over. The sudden wave of air completely exceeded Guan Yi's understanding. His attack was clearly only one step away from Bailey Hongzhuang, but he was sent flying by a terrifying wave of air. At that moment, everyone clearly noticed that Guan Yi's expression changed from ferocious to shocked, and then to red. Smoke and dust rose as Guan Yi's body landed heavily on the ground, creating a deep pit. Looking at the deep pit, everyone understood that the force he endured was much heavier than Yun Xiaoman. Cough, cough, cough. Guan Yi clutched his chest and coughed nonstop until he fell to the ground. He was still in a daze just now at that moment. What actually happened? When he raised his eyes to look, he clearly noticed that in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, there was a similar size but completely different color, black furball. Chapter 6490. Seeing this black furball appear, not only Guan Yi, everyone present was also dumbfounded. No one would have two contracted beasts at the same time. So what was going on with this contracted beast in front of them? The most important thing was that one punch almost made Guan Yi spit out blood. This strength was not just a little shocking. How could it be like this? Yin Xiaoman was a little confused. Until this moment, she finally understood the meaning of Bailey Hongzhuang's words before. The opponent's numbers were indeed greater than theirs. Xiao Bai proudly raised its eyebrows at Xiao He, indicating that its attack caused more damage. Wait and see. Xiao Hei's face was unresigned. Its gaze became unfathomable. Just now it also used an extremely strong strength, but Yin Xiaoman and Guan Yi were in a different environment. Guan Yi was too close, so it was able to explode with the strongest effect. Guan Yi quickly climbed up from the deep pit, patted the smoke and dust off his body. But in the end, he was still a little embarrassed. I understand, this black contracted beast is most likely this man's contracted beast, right? That's right, these two people are really interesting. Even their contracted beasts are the same species. These two contracted beasts look so cute. Their battle strength shouldn't be strong. Guan Yi was actually sent flying by this contracted beast. It's really a little embarrassing. Everyone clicked their tongue and sighed. Reaching the brilliant sun realm, the distance from becoming a true immortal is only one step. With this kind of strength, it's impossible for him to be injured by a normal contracted beast, although Guan Yi was caught off guard. But this kind of performance is indeed a little embarrassing. As if feeling everyone's ridiculing gaze, Guan Yi was a little angry. You're courting death. So what? If you have the ability, hit me. Xiao Bai didn't care and twisted its body. That appearance was really asking for a beating. Seeing this, Guan Yi's face became more and more ashen. This damned guy. In the next moment, Guan Yi directly rushed towards Xiao He. This kind of contract beast that could only be somewhat useful through trickery actually dared to be so cocky in front of him. He must kill this contract beast today. Yin Xiaoman also had the same idea as Guan Yi. They had just made a move, and they were already slapped in the face by two contract beasts. If they didn't kill these two contract beasts, they wouldn't even be able to raise their heads. As long as she and Guan Yi attacked at the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang could only protect one of them, even if she wanted to. If he wanted to protect the two of them, he simply couldn't do it in two places. As Guan Yi and Yin Xiaoman moved at the same time, everyone discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang, who they thought would fall into a panic, still had a relaxed and casual appearance, as if she was not worried at all. Could it be that this woman doesn't care about these two contract beasts at all? In the world of cultivation, as the strength of the cultivator increased, the cultivation of the contracted beast would often not be able to keep up. In addition, each cultivator could only contract with one demonic beast. Thus, this situation was created. As long as the contracted beast died, they would have the opportunity to contract a new one. Of course, the majority of cultivators wouldn't do this, because so many years of companionship were very affectionate. That kind of feeling was like a family member. Ordinary people simply couldn't make a move on their own family members. Even if the contracted beast's strength couldn't help them much, at least it was a kind of connection and comfort. Chapter 6491. Although Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi were a little surprised, they didn't take it to heart. No matter how vicious and merciless Bailey Hongzhuang was, it had nothing to do with them. Anyway, it would only affect her own image. Letting everyone see the ugliness in this woman's heart was actually a good thing for them. Against a normal contracted beast, the two of them naturally wouldn't spend too much effort. There was no need to use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. If they used a Herculean effort to kill these two contracted beasts, wouldn't it be embarrassing if word got out? Bang! Just as they were thinking, Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi's attacks were already very close to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. However, just as the two of them had completely locked onto the contracted beasts and their attacks were about to land on Xiao He and Xiao Bai, they suddenly realized that the two contracted beasts had disappeared into thin air. The sudden situation was out of their expectations. Their fists were already out and couldn't be retracted. The feeling of punching into thin air was unbearable. Everyone present was also attracted by this scene. The two furballs had appeared out of thin air, and now they had disappeared into thin air. It was indeed very strange. Just as Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi were charging forward, due to inertia, the two furballs appeared again and used their bodies as weapons to fiercely smash into the two's backs. Bang! Ouch! Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi's bodies fiercely crashed into each other before falling to the ground. However, through Xiao He and Xiao Bai's attacks, everyone finally understood what was going on. It turned out that these two contracted beasts that didn't seem to have any attack power actually had a very powerful ability. That was change size. This ability might not seem very useful at first glance, but as long as it was used properly, the effect was very shocking. At least, when it was used for a sneak attack, this was simply an awesome assist. Waves of pain came from her body. Yun Xiaoman only felt a burning sensation on her back, as if her skin was about to split open. That powerful strength wasn't inferior to a Radiant Sunstage cultivator's full-strength attack. Damn it, Yun Xiaoman cursed. If she had been defeated fair and square, then it would have been fine, but this feeling of humiliation was simply infuriating. Xiaoman, are you okay? Guan Yi endured the pain in his back and looked at Yun Xiaoman with concern. Yun Xiaoman's complexion was ashen. Being humiliated in front of so many people, she was about to explode from anger. I'm fine. This woman is so arrogant. How can I be fine? Her furious voice was mixed with hysterical anger. At this moment, Yun Xiaoman no longer had the slightest bit of her previous bearing. Her pretty face was filled with a ferocious expression, and her eyes were full of murderous intent. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to notice the murderous aura that engulfed her. She continued to stand in the same spot like a painting. And this kind of Bailey Hongzhuang even more provoked Yun Xiaoman's anger. She immediately stood up and angrily said, "If you have the ability, then fight with me fair and square. Don't play these little tricks." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly turned her gaze and looked at Yun Xiaoman with a smile that wasn't a smile. Her phoenix eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule. You can't even defeat my contracted beasts, and you actually want to fight with me? This casual sentence ruthlessly pierced into Yun Xiaoman's heart. Her mood that had calmed down a second ago was immediately ignited again. I'm going to kill you. Chapter 6492. One side was shouting hysterically while the other side was casually replying. The crowd's eyes were filled with disdain. Not to mention the exchange just now, Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. Just based on the white-clothed woman's calm and composed attitude, It could be seen that her strength was not weak, because this kind of arrogance that came from her bones was not something that others could give. You try. Hearing these provocative words, Yun Xiaoman could not hold back the killing intent in her heart, and once again rushed forward. However, before she could even get close, Xiaohei had already appeared in front of her once again. Want to touch my master? You'll have to pass through me first. Xiaohei coldly looked at Yun Xiaoman originally. Everything was going very smoothly today. If it wasn't for this woman looking for trouble again and again, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. However, since things had already gotten out of hand, then she might as well let it continue. Just based on this fellow, he might not even be her opponent. Why would she need her master to make a move? Yin Xiaoman's entire body was emitting a cold, killing intent. Her face was already red from anger. She was simply about to die from anger. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, she was actually humiliated by a contract beast time and time again. If you have the ability, then don't change your size. If you don't dare, then get out of the way. With a trace of craftiness in her dark eyes, Yin Xiaoman's gaze locked onto Xiaohei. This furball's ability to suddenly change its eyes was really too annoying. Just now it happened twice in a row was already embarrassing enough. If it happened again, then it would really become a joke. The strangest thing was that for a contract beast with a weaker cultivation, it should be very easy to lock onto its aura. Once it was locked onto, even if it changed its size, it could still be caught. However, just when this contract beast changed its size, she discovered that she was unable to lock onto this demonic beast's aura. This was what made her most speechless. Where did this strange demonic beast that she had never heard of before come from? Not only was its appearance strange, its moves were also strange. Following Yin Xiaoman's words, the crowd could not help but sigh. The contract beast's strength was originally not strong enough. If it did not have this small advantage, then wouldn't it be easily defeated? Such a statement was simply too shameless. However, just as everyone thought that Xiaohei would never agree, the white furball nodded. All right, I promise you. Agreed? Everyone was stunned, and even Yun Xiaoman was a little surprised. She only wanted to chase this hateful fur ball to the side, but it actually agreed to her request without a second thought. After a brief moment of shock, she met Xiaohei's mocking gaze. She was certain that she did not see wrongly. She saw mockery and disdain in the furball's eyes. A contracted beast actually dared to look at her with such a gaze? It was a great humiliation. Compared to being ridiculed by Bailey Hongzhuang, being looked down upon by a demon beast, especially a demon beast from a lower plane, was far more humiliating. Good. I'll roast you today. Yin Xiaoman's face flashed with a hint of madness, and she attacked Xiaohei directly. She wanted to turn this fur ball into dregs with a punch. Seeing Yin Xiaoman's crazy attitude, everyone unconsciously looked towards Bailey Hongzhuang. At this point, could it be that she still did not make a move? Chapter 6493. Xiaohei and Xiaobai were her earliest contracted beasts. From the time she transmigrated until now, they had been cultivating for quite some time. It was just that the two little fellows' appearances were too deceiving, so she always treated them as cute pets. In fact, Xiaohei and Xiaobai's battle strength was not weak at all. Their strength was even stronger than Xiao Xuanzi's. Now that Xiao Xuanzi was training by himself, Xiaohei and Xiaobai could also stand on their own. Since there was a chance for the two little fellows to perform well, she couldn't let them cultivate peacefully all the time. Actual combat was still very helpful to the improvement of battle strength. Yin Xiaoman saw that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have any plans to make a move, and a trace of ridicule appeared in her eyes. She would kill this contracted beast and let her have a good look. Bang! This time, Xiaohei didn't dodge at all. Its fist also met it. Just when everyone thought that Xiaohei would be killed by this fist, their expressions stiffened for a moment. Then, they stared dumbfoundedly at Yun Xiaoman, who flew out again. Yun Xiaoman originally didn't put Xiaohei in her heart, so she naturally wouldn't use all her strength in the fight. However, when the terrifying strength of that fist came, it was too late for her to regret. This was because she could clearly feel the aura of this seemingly harmless demonic beast. Radiant Sun Realm. It was actually Radiant Sun Realm. The sharp pain coming from her body couldn't compare to the shock in her heart. She couldn't believe that this contracted beast strength was actually this strong. This was simply impossible. Everyone present was stunned. When they looked at Xiao He again, everyone put away their previous casualness. If the previous 2 times were opportunistic, then this time should be a direct confrontation, right? A Radiant Sun Realm cultivator facing a direct confrontation and not defeating a contracted beast. This kind of scene was really rare. Oh my God, we've never seen this kind of contracted beast before. Could it be an immortal beast? Are immortal beasts so cute? Previously, when I thought it was just for show, I was already very fond of it. Coupled with such strong strength, it's simply the contract beast of my dreams. I'm suddenly so envious of them. They actually have such great demon beasts. If I could have one too, I would be so happy. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's adorable looks had already captured the hearts of many female cultivators. One could only imagine how much influence these cute contracted beasts would have when they were also extremely powerful. Now, not only female cultivators, even male cultivators felt that if they had such a contracted beast, it would be much easier to pursue female cultivators. After all, from the reactions of these women, it could be seen that none of them could resist this temptation. It was rare for Xiao He and Xiao Bai to be praised by so many people, and they felt proud of themselves. It looked like their hard work during this period of time had not been in vain. Being strong was indeed beneficial. Guan Yi quickly subdued Yun Xiaoman, and Yun Xiaoman had an expression as if she had seen a ghost. How could it be Radiant Sun Realm? The moment these words were spoken, everyone at the scene was shocked. Their faces were full of shock. This contracted beast is actually Radiant Sun Realm? What kind of contracted beast is this? Even if it's not an immortal beast, if it breaks through to the elementary celestial realm, then it's a real immortal beast. Chapter 6494. If the white furball was at the Radiant Sun stage, then the black furball strength was probably on par with it. 2 Radiant Sun stage contracted beasts. Their strength was simply exploding. Bang! At the same time, Di Beichen sent Guan Hongtian flying with a single palm strike. He looked to the side and saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai who were in the limelight. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. His elegant and charming face suddenly had a trace of mischief and charm. The crowd was already attracted by Di Beichen's appearance. When they saw this graceful smile, their hearts skipped a beat. They were completely immersed in that charming smile. Seeing Di Beichen defeat Guan Hongtian, Bailey Hongzhuang also smiled like a spring breeze. She knew that with Beichen's strength, defeating Guan Hongtian wouldn't be a problem. The strength of the cultivators in the chaotic immortal realm had a lot to do with the city. Just as the abandoned immortal forest was more dangerous in the center, the chaotic immortal realm was also the same. The closer the city was to the chaotic immortal realm, the stronger the cultivators were. Xi'an City was undoubtedly the outermost city. They didn't feel much pressure here. Even though Guan Hongtian was older, after opening the Million Treasures Pavilion, his cultivation had probably slackened a bit. After all, it was easy for people to relax in a good environment. Guan Hongtian didn't think that he would be at a disadvantage in the hands of Di Beichen. Immediately, his expression became very ugly. This young man who had never appeared before was actually so powerful. The woman at the side hadn't even made a move. Just the 2 contracted beasts were enough to make Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman fall into such a predicament. This threat wasn't small at all. He had stayed in Xi'an City for so many years. He knew all too well that these people were real threats. The more powerful a person was, the more they needed to be dealt with as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the other party's strength exceeded his own, it would be really troublesome. At this moment, a series of hurried footsteps arrived. Master! Seeing the sudden appearance of several figures, Guan Hongtian's expression became better. He revealed a proud smile. His helpers had finally arrived. Yun Xiaoman and Guan he also let out a sigh of relief. Although the strength of these two fellows had indeed exceeded their expectations, as long as the outcome did not change, it did not matter. In short, these two fellows would definitely die today. TSK, the Wanbao Pavilion's helpers are here. There's no show to watch. What a pity. I actually hoped that they would win. At the very least, I would want to know what kind of contract beast it is. Don't even think about it. Although the shopkeeper of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion isn't very strong, it's still the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. Everyone clicked their tongues and shook their heads. At this point, the outcome had already been decided. Yin Xiaoman put her hands on her hips and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang proudly. Now that things have come to this, let's see how you can still pretend to be calm. Teach them a good lesson. Guan Hongtian waved his hand, and a dozen cultivators surrounded Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. They were all cultivators of the Radiant Sun realm. Just the aura they released was already full of deterrence. Just as everyone was sighing and preparing to leave, Bailey Hongzhuang's clear voice slowly sounded. As usual, it was languid and casual. If you want to die, then you can try. Hearing this, Yin Xiaoman frowned. This woman was about to die and still had this kind of expression. It was really strange. Stop pretending. Do you think I'll fall for your trick? Chapter 6495. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's confident appearance, everyone couldn't help but stop. They want to know what made Bailey Hongzhuang so confident. Guan Hongtian also frowned. Ever since they started fighting, he realized that these two guys who he thought he could easily crush to death weren't simple. They had an indescribable evil nature. Not to mention the two contracted beasts. Even this man was very strange. According to his judgment, the opponent's aura wasn't as good as his. At least, the strength of the Radiant Sun stage was definitely not as long as his. However, when they fought, he felt very uncomfortable. On one hand, this kid was too agile. On the other hand, he felt that he didn't force out this kid's full strength. When this thought appeared, he himself felt that it was inconceivable. However, this feeling just kept deepening in his mind. Let's try then. Yin Xiaoman also didn't believe this and directly rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. This time, Xiao He and Xiao Bai didn't block in front of the woman. Even Di Beichun didn't make a move. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flashed. Everyone only saw a white light flash by. Yin Xiaoman's fist didn't land on her body. On the contrary, she was sent flying again by a kick. How did it feel to be sent flying 3 or 4 times in a row? Yin Xiaoman only wanted to kill now. Uncle Guan, you must help me kill this woman. Yin Xiaoman looked at Guan Hongtian with shame and anger. No matter how unwilling she was, she had to admit that Bailey Hongzhuang was stronger than her. If this woman suddenly appeared, she wouldn't have come from the city inside, right? Otherwise, with the same cultivation, how could her battle strength be so strong? Guan Yi helped Yin Xiaoman up again. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, his gaze was complicated. So this woman wasn't just beautiful. Her strength was also amazing. Don't worry. The two of them definitely won't be able to leave. Guan Hongtian's eyes showed a trace of ruthlessness. Not to mention that Yin Xiaoman wasn't willing. He also wouldn't agree. They made him lose face in front of everyone. If he didn't kill them, then how would others look at him in the future? Capture them. Guan Hongtian ordered with a ruthless look in his eyes. Since you dare to cause trouble in the Wanbao Pavilion, I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to be dead. Looking at the crowd getting closer and closer, Bailey Hongzhuang said casually, if you want the two of them to die, then do it. Hearing this, Guan Hongtian sneered. Do you think this kind of groundless threat can make me stop? Do you think I'm a fool? Aren't you? The sarcastic question was like a flame that instantly ignited a candle. Guan Hongtian's anger flared up even more. However, before he could say anything, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice rang out again. The two of them have already been poisoned by me. If you dare to make a move, I guarantee that they will die before me. As soon as these words came out, Yin Xiaoman and Guan Yi couldn't help but be stunned. Both of their faces were filled with disbelief. This is impossible. Previously, they had indeed exchanged blows, but poisoning, they had never thought of that. Look at your palms. Isn't there a black line? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips hooked up in an enchanting arc. Her elegant and refined, smiling face suddenly filled with grace, becoming more and more alluring. What kind of joke is this? How can we be poisoned? Chapter 6496. Whether it was Yun Xiaoman or Guan Yi, they both thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was just deliberately mystifying things. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang did not touch them at all, and in the process, they did not feel that she had poisoned them at all. At this level of cultivation, ordinary poison techniques were useless against them, unless it was a poison master who was extremely proficient in poison techniques. Because the poison from the lower realm had very little effect here, even if the poison was not simple. As long as they bought a detoxification pill, the poison could be easily neutralized. Since Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in this cloud-gathering city, her methods must not be too good, because the inner city usually has more abundant cultivation resources. Staying here is a waste of time. Just when the two of them thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was just stalling for time, they suddenly discovered that a black line had appeared on their palms. This black line appeared without anyone noticing. If it was not for her reminder, they did not even know when they would have discovered it. How could this be? Guan Yi's pupils shrank, becoming incomparably ugly. Even if he was not proficient in the art of medicine and poison, but as long as he felt it carefully, he could discover that this was indeed poison. They were poisoned. In a situation where they were completely unaware, they were poisoned. Even if the others could not see the palms of the two, but just by looking at the expression of the two, they could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang was telling the truth. For a moment, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a trace of fear in their eyes. No wonder this woman had a calm and composed appearance from beginning to end. It turns out that she was a poison master. Poison masters were originally able to kill people without leaving a trace, unless they were extremely strong or someone who could neutralize the poison. Once other people were poisoned, it would be extremely troublesome. I really could not tell that this delicate and pure girl was actually a poison master. Just based on her performance just now, her poison methods are very strong. I have been watching the fight just now. There was no chance to use poison at all. Could it be that it was done by those two contracted beasts? As soon as this was said, everyone looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai with a trace of amazement. When a poison master had a contract beast that could be said to be a hidden weapon, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Anyone who didn't know her well would easily fall in her trap. What's more, this contracted beast is so strong. It's the best combination. You dare to poison us? Yin Xiaoman's complexion paled a little. She had always been on guard against Bailey Hongzhuang, but she didn't think that this woman was really good at this aspect. Why wouldn't I dare? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows playfully. If I want you to die, you'll die within 3 seconds. Do you believe me? Yin Xiaoman and Guan Yi looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in bewilderment. The two of them subconsciously did not believe it, because they did not believe that the poison was so powerful. However, when they recalled the many strange situations that Bailey Hongzhuang had shown, they were not confident. If what this woman said was true, once they treated her with this kind of attitude, even if they really had to die. Guan Hongtian pulled Guan Yi's hand. After seeing the deep and dark poison line, his face became extremely ugly. You women are actually so despicable. Chapter 6497. In terms of being despicable, I admit defeat. Her cold voice was as fresh and natural as spring water. Her calm face did not have the slightest trace of mockery. However, it was these kind of words, coupled with that kind of face, that had the most destructive power. Guan Hongtian was so angry at Bailey Hongzhuang that he did not know what to say. Don't be too proud. This kind of poison is definitely not difficult to detoxify. Heh. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. You can try. Uncle. Guan Yi looked at Guan Hongtian for help. He did not know why, but he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was too confident. This made him very uneasy. Someone bring 2 antidote pills. With a wave of Guan Yi's hand, the attendant of one Bao Pavilion immediately brought 2 antidote pills. Quickly take it. Seeing this, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman did not dare to delay and immediately took the antidote pills. As long as the antidote pills could detoxify the poison, then they would be able to teach these two hateful fellows a lesson without any scruples. Everyone looked at this scene with interest. Not knowing what the outcome would be, Di Beichon stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang calmly. There is no need to say more about his wife's poison skills. When she was in the upper realm, her poison skills were already at the peak. Now, with Granny Hua's guidance, even in the immortal realm, her poison skills were definitely outstanding. In fact, in these days in the abandoned immortal forest, Bailey Hongzhuang's poison skills had improved more than her cultivation. After Yin Xiaoman took the antidote pill, she quickly looked at the black line in her hand. As long as the black line disappeared, they would be able to kill Bailey Hongzhuang at the first moment. At that time, the treasures on these two people would all be theirs. With so many pills and talismans, how many cultivation resources could they exchange for? Perhaps they could even use these cultivation resources to reach the elementary immortal realm. How is it? Guan Hongtian looked at Guan Yi with concern. He had always been very concerned about this nephew of his. No matter what, he couldn't let anything happen to Guan Yi. Guan Yi stared blankly at the black line that was still visible on his palm. His expression turned ugly. Uncle, it doesn't seem to work. Useless. Guan Hongtian grabbed Guan Yi's hand in disbelief. This detoxification pill was quite effective. It could detoxify all common poisons, even some of the more complicated ones. Guan Hongtian's heart sank when he saw the clear line of poison with his own eyes. No wonder these two fellows were so calm. It seemed like they were extremely confident in their methods. As long as we catch them, we'll be able to find the poison on her body. One of his subordinates couldn't help but say. Once they attacked, the two of them would definitely be unable to escape calamity. However, everyone knew this, but Guan Hongtian didn't dare to act rashly. Because according to Bailey Hongzhuang, it wouldn't be difficult for her to kill Guan Yi and Jun Mosief first. He couldn't gamble and didn't dare to gamble. Once Guan Yi died, how would he face it? Not only Guan Hongtian, but Guan Yi and Yin Xiaoman's faces also turned red. Didn't this mean that the initiative had fallen into the hands of the other party? What do you want? Yin Xiaoman looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with an ashen face. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent and unwillingness. Chapter 6498. Yin Xiaoman almost subconsciously wanted to retort, but thinking that her life was still in the other party's hands, she could only forcibly swallow her unwillingness. Guan Yi and Yin Xiaoman looked at each other. The other party's conditions made them feel very humiliated. Even if it was just an apology, it was very shameful. Why don't you apologize first? As long as we get the antidote, we'll kill them. Guan Hongtian's eyes flashed with a scheming luster. The older the ginger, the spicier the ginger. At worst, he would admit defeat now. The other party only had two people. After all, they were weak. When the time comes to deal with them, wouldn't it be a simple matter? Guan Yi naturally understood that at present, besides this method, there was no other way. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only say, "I'm sorry." Seeing that Guan Yi had already apologized, Yin Xiaoman quickly followed up, "I'm sorry." Louder, my master can't hear. Xiao He heard the mosquito-like voice and couldn't help but say. Seeing that a contract beast actually dared to bully her, Yin Xiaoman's heart was even more unhappy. Her face was as red as a pig's liver. The surging anger in her eyes was about to erupt at any time. But, thinking of the poison line in her hands, her momentum weakened and she helplessly raised her voice. "I'm sorry." Only then did everyone hear it clearly. Seeing the two people apologizing like this, everyone sighed and shook their heads. This situation, until the very last moment, no one knew what would happen. The speed of this turn of events was really surprising. Wanbao Pavilion has never suffered such a loss. This time, they really lost face. They also didn't expect this to happen, but to be honest, this Guan Hongtian is really too arrogant. If it wasn't for the fact that Wanbao Pavilion's things are really first class, I wouldn't be willing to buy it all. Then what can we do? Who told him to be the shopkeeper of Wan Bao Pavilion? Seeing him suffer a loss today, I actually feel very happy. Is this okay? Guan Hongtian looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, even if he knew that he should soften his tone, but when he spoke, there was still a bit of anger. At this time, Di Beichen's deep eyes fell on him. What about you? What about you? Hearing this, Guan Hongtian couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. Only then did he realize that Di Beichen was saying that he hadn't apologized yet. You want me to apologize? Guan Hongtian raised his voice. Disbelief was written all over his face. He was the shopkeeper of Wan Bao Pavilion. As well as the elders of these two people, they actually want him to apologize to them? Is there a problem? Di Beichen furrowed his brows and asked. It was a simple rhetorical question, but there was a hint of irrefutability in it. Don't go too far, Guan Hongtian emphasized. It wasn't a big deal for the two juniors to apologize, but if he also apologized, then it would be a great loss of face. Is up. Di Beichen didn't care. Instead, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang gently. Wife, let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Xiao He and Xiao Bai jumped onto their shoulders, intending to leave. Guan Hongtian's subordinates looked up, unsure if they should stop them or not. Shopkeeper. Chapter 6499. Guan Hongtian's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. If he had enough time, he would like to find a physician to examine the situation. Perhaps a physician would be able to detoxify the poison. Unfortunately, he did not have time at all. Wait. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were about to walk out of the encirclement, Guan Hongtian's voice rang out. However, the two of them did not stop because of this and continued to walk forward. Guan Hongtian's expression darkened when he saw that the two of them did not seem to care at all. He immediately quickened his pace and walked in front of the two of them. Wait, I apologize. Guan Hongtian's face was filled with embarrassment, and indignation. However, he still blurted it out. I was in the wrong earlier. I apologize. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Guan Hongtian indifferently and said, I only bought an elixir furnace from the Thousand Treasures Pavilion, but you still acted all high and mighty in front of me after I paid for it. As the shopkeeper, you should apologize properly. As the woman's clear and melodious voice fell, the crowd finally understood what was going on. I guess that Guan Hongtian was being unreasonable first. His way of doing business is really admirable. I think the Thousand Treasures Pavilion is really blind. If someone else was a shopkeeper, their business would definitely be much better. It's no use even if you think it's a pity. Who asked Guan Hongtian to be the shopkeeper? The crowd sighed and shook their heads. Everyone wanted to be the shopkeeper of the Thousand Treasures Pavilion. On one hand, it was a lucrative job. On the other hand, the shopkeeper was more powerful than others. If anything happened, he could even use the Thousand Treasures Pavilion's power. At the very least, with this identity, his status in Shiyun City could be said to be very stable. Guan Hongtian's expression darkened when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's lecturing words. However, the initiative was now in the other party's hands. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only suppress his anger. This is indeed my fault. Miss, you're a magnanimous person. Can you give me the antidote? Guan Hongtian hid the viciousness in his eyes, and a pleading look appeared in his eyes. As long as he got the antidote, he would kill these two bastards. Do I have to forgive you just because you apologize? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and asked. Guan Hongtian raised his head abruptly. He clearly noticed the mockery in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. His voice became low and suppressed. Are you playing with me? You owe us an apology. Isn't that what you should do? Bailey Hongzhuang said seriously. Her innocent look made it seem as if she was talking about the cycle of karma. It was a very normal thing. Looking at that extremely beautiful face, Guan Hongtian felt all of his anger being aroused. Don't go too far. Yin Xiaoman couldn't bear it anymore. She angrily pointed at Bailey Hongzhuang, her chest heaving up and down because of her anger. The immortal pill furnace has already been destroyed by you, and we've already apologized. What else do you want? As far as I know, We've already paid for this immortal pill furnace. Baichen's calm voice sounded. His eyes, as deep as the night, fell on Yun Xiaoman's body, revealing a kind of disdainful aura. Chapter 6500. Speaking of which, from the beginning to the end, you've been looking for trouble. If we weren't poisoned, would you let us go so easily? Under the starry sunshine, Bailey Hongzhuang's jade-like face glowed with a dazzling luster. A mocking smile bloomed on her lips, but it didn't affect her beauty at all. On the contrary, it added an indescribable charm, like a demon crystal in the forest, exuding a fatal charm. You have 3 days. If I see your sincerity in 3 days, I'll give you the antidote. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. After saying that, Bailey Hongzhuang held Baichen's hand and disappeared into the crowd. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Guan Tianyi leaving, Yun Xiaoman and the other two could only stand there in a daze. No matter how unwilling they were, their lives were in the hands of the other party. Don't worry. We'll find a doctor to check on you first. Maybe the antidote will be easy. Guan Hongtian looked at Guan Yi with concern. He felt that this woman was the real idiot. Once the antidote was cured, he would make her die without a burial place. Guan Yi nodded slightly. Uncle, I believe it can be cured. Uncle Guan, what if they take advantage of this opportunity to run away? The chaotic immortal domain is so big. If we can't find them, then this time, Yin Xiaoman's face was gloomy. Feeling the ridicule of the surrounding people, she only felt that she was going to die of anger. She had stayed in Shiyun City for so long, but she had never been so embarrassed. Guan Hongtian waved his hand indifferently. Xiaoman, don't worry. In this Shiyun City, Uncle Guan still has a certain amount of power. I've already sent people to watch them. They can't escape. Seeing this, Yun Xiaoman was a little relieved. Bailey Hongzhuang and Baichen went back. They felt that someone was following them, but they didn't have the slightest intention to point it out. After 3 days, Guan Hongtian and the other two would definitely come to find them. They had to let them know the address. Baichen, did you really break that immortal pill furnace? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Baichen with some confusion in her eyes. The quality of the immortal pill furnace was very good. Previously, when the immortal pill furnace was in Baichen's hands, she didn't pay too much attention to it. However, based on Guan Hongtian and the other two's reactions, she wasn't sure if they were being framed. It's broken. How did you break it? They used a formation to destroy the internal structure. Baichen looked casual. This was what Hongzhuang liked. Since he couldn't get it, he couldn't let it fall into the hands of that annoying woman. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly admired him. If Senior Zhongli knew about this matter, she didn't know whether he would be happy or helpless. After all, Baichen's array skills were truly at the point of perfection. To be able to do this in such a short period of time was indeed very impressive. When the time comes, do you really plan to give the antidote to them? Baichen raised his smoky eyebrows. A faint smile appeared on his lips, like layers of pear blossoms. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. When the time comes, we'll see how it goes. With their personalities, it's impossible for them to obediently submit. It's unavoidable to spend some effort. Chapter 6501. Master, I think they must be blind, Xiaohei said. And they're not just blind, Xiaobai added. Guan Hongtian immediately sent for a doctor to examine the poison in Yun Xiaoman and Xiaohei. Dr. Su, is this poison easy to detoxify? Guan Hongtian asked with concern. With your medical skills, it should be easy to detoxify it, right? Dr. Su's face was full of confidence, as if he didn't care at all. Shopkeeper Guan, according to what you said, that woman is so young. Even if her medical skills are good, how good can they be? In my opinion, she should only be good at medicine in the lower realms. However, since the detoxification pill can't directly detoxify the poison, it can only be said that she has some ability. But in the chaotic immortal realm, that may not be the case. Guan Hongtian felt relieved when he heard the indifference in Dr. Su's voice. Dr. Su's medical skills were extremely outstanding in Shiyun City. Since he said it so casually, it should be easy to detoxify it. Yin Xiaoman immediately breathed a sigh of relief. After she was completely relieved, her words returned to their original arrogance. I knew it. That woman must be deliberately mystifying us, thinking that this kind of poison can completely frighten us. She said she would give us 3 days. I don't think we need 3 days at all. After a while, we'll have to kill her. Although Guan didn't say anything, his face was a little more relaxed. Previously, he felt that his life was in the hands of others, so he was a little worried. Now, he could finally rest assured. Dr. Su, why don't you take a look at my nephew first? Only when this poison is detoxified can we be completely at ease, Guan Tian said with a smile. Dr. Su nodded slightly. No problem. Let me take a look. Guan immediately stretched out his hand. During this time, he had been paying attention to the black line in the center of his hand. He vaguely felt that the black line was gradually spreading. Although the spreading speed wasn't fast and it didn't look obvious, he still felt that there were some changes. Just as Guan Tian and the others were casually waiting for the detoxification result, they found that Dr. Su's originally calm face was gradually becoming serious. For a long time, Dr. Su's hand was still on Guan Yi's hand. He frowned, and his face was full of contemplation. Sometimes, he couldn't help but sigh, as if he had encountered something incredible. Most importantly, his face was getting darker and darker. Dr. Su, is there something wrong with this situation? Guan Tian was a shrewd person. Just by observing Dr. Su's expression, he could tell that something was amiss. Moreover, the fact that he hadn't spoken for so long meant that the situation might be more complicated than they thought. Hearing this, Dr. Su withdrew his hand. He looked at Guan Tian with a complicated expression. There was a hint of awkwardness and uneasiness in his expression. At this moment, his heart was also extremely tormented. He incomparably regretted the boast he had made earlier. Manager Guan, this poison is indeed strange. I've never seen such a strange pulse before. As soon as he said that, Guan Yi and the other two's expressions changed. Their faces were filled with disbelief. For a moment, Yin Xiaoman even thought that she must have misheard. Dr. Su, what did you say? What does that mean? Chapter 6502. So that's how it is. Then should only take some effort. Guan Tian quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they can still find a way, it means that there is a possibility of a solution. It's better than not having any ideas at all. Dr. Su, I wonder if this poison can be detoxified within 3 days? Guan asked tentatively. Bailey Hongzhuang only gave them 3 days. If they can't detoxify it within these 3 days, then it means that they can only go to the door and beg for mercy. This is obviously something they are unwilling to do. Hearing this, Dr. Su's complexion changed a bit. He then said, Shopkeeper Guan, this poison is indeed a bit strange. I'm afraid the composition is not simple. Although I don't understand this poison, but I observed the poison thread in young Master Guan's hand. The other side also proposed 3 days. If I didn't guess wrong, this poison thread should be unspeakable. It should slowly go from the palm to the arm. After 3 days, that will be the time of death. So, I think it's best that you find a few more doctors. Maybe there are people who have come in contact with this poison before. It will be easier to deal with it. Even if he is unwilling to admit that the other side's poison skills are already very shocking, this matter is related to Guan Yi's life, so Dr. Su can only tell the truth. Even if he feels that it is possible to judge from this poison blood, but in fact he himself doesn't have much confidence. He himself has already lost so much face. If he finds 2 more people to take the fall, it won't be too embarrassing. However, when Dr. Su's words fell into the ears of Guan Tian and the other 2, it brought them too much shock. They don't dare to believe that everything Bailey Hongzhuang said is actually true. That woman, no wonder she was so confident in giving us 3 days. It turns out that she has already calculated everything. Guan Hongtian's mood at this moment is also very complicated. These 2 young people who don't seem to have any strength. He didn't expect their methods to completely exceed his expectations. Yin Xiaoman's face is ashen. Her hands gradually exert strength. The bones of her fingers are also somewhat white. She can't believe. That woman's methods are actually so superb. In fact, she is also an alchemist. This time, she went to buy an immortal pill furnace in order to learn how to refine immortal pills. The alchemy skills she has currently mastered are only from the lower planes. But facing this poison, she doesn't have the slightest method to detoxify it. Long before Dr. Su came, she had already examined herself. She only felt that this poison was extremely strange, beyond the scope of her usual understanding. He originally thought that it would be easy with the help of the celestial doctor. However, he did not expect that even the celestial doctor would be stumped. Guan Hong Tian didn't waste any time and immediately went to invite other doctors. Even if it would cost a lot to hire these doctors, it would still be better than begging Bailey Hongzhuang for mercy. Because not only would he lose face, the other party would also take the opportunity to demand an exorbitant price. That night, the Guan family was very lively. At the same time, the news that the Guan family had invited many doctors quickly spread throughout Xi'an City. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang said those words, everyone was extremely curious. They didn't know if the poison was really that powerful. Because of that, many people were paying close attention to what would happen next. The next day, everyone's expression changed when they heard that the Guan family was still looking for a doctor. Chapter 65:03. At first, I thought the woman was just joking. Maybe she would take this opportunity to run away. Now, it seems that's not the case. So many doctors have gathered in the Guan residence, but they haven't left yet. This means that the poison hasn't been cured yet. That woman is so young, but her poison skills are so powerful. If all the doctors can't cure the poison, then this is going to be a good show. Most of the cultivators in Xi'an City were just watching the show. If the other party wasn't Guan Hong Tian, perhaps they wouldn't have paid so much attention. However, everyone was very interested in this eye-catching person. When Xiren and the others found out about this, their faces were filled with astonishment. Hong Zhuang and the others are really unusual. They just arrived in the realm of chaotic immortals, and they've already caused such a big commotion. Xiren sighed and shook his head. It was a pity that they didn't participate in such a big event. Actually, I think that Hong Zhuang and Beichun have the ability to attract hatred. Even if they don't cause trouble, someone will. Shangguan Yingying shrugged. Perhaps this was the trouble of geniuses. She had been training with Hong Zhuang and the others for a long time. Most of the time, they didn't take the initiative to cause trouble. It was as if the other party had eyes in the back of their heads and would always cause trouble for them. Haha, you're right, Xiren chuckled. Just wait and see. Yunjue and the others will be very helpless when they find out. In fact, whether it was Mo Yunjue's group or by Li Yin-che's group, they couldn't help but sigh when they heard the news. When Hong Zhuang left the restaurant, she reminded them to be careful and not get into trouble. In the blink of an eye, they got into trouble first. Moreover, the other party was the famous Wanbao Pavilion. While the outside world was spreading the news, the people involved, Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun, were quietly staying in the room. If they went out now, they would definitely attract a lot of attention. Rather than that, they might as well cultivate here first. I originally wanted to exchange for some blood spirit stones, but now I don't need them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the blood spirit stone in her hand, and a smile appeared on her lips. Back in the abandoned, immortal forest, blood spirit stones were a very rare resource. However, the elders had a lot of them, so it didn't affect their cultivation. Now that they were out, they would have to deal with the issue of cultivation resources themselves. My wife has always been resourceful. Di Beichun smiled faintly and handed the dessert to Bailey Hongzhuang. Try it. Bailey Hongzhuang took a piece of sparkling and translucent pastry, the sweet taste filling her mouth. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the corners of her lips hooked up in a happy arc. Not bad. Master, will they really send cultivation resources over when the time comes? Xiao Hei jumped on the table and quietly reached out her paw to take a piece of dessert. Isn't that obvious? Xiao Bai rolled her eyes. Mistress is so confident. Does it even need to be said? The doctors in Xi'an City definitely can't compare. That's not necessarily true. There will always be someone better than you. Bailey Hongzhuang looked thoughtful. In fact, The poison she used this time wasn't taught to her by Granny Hua. Chapter 6504. Although Bailey Hongzhuang did not know if anyone could cure the poison, at least this poison had never appeared before. Therefore, even if the other party's medical skills were extraordinary, it would take a long time to cure the poison. Therefore, the situation was obvious. Just as everyone was talking, there was a sudden knock on the door. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun heard the knock, they could not help but look at each other with a trace of doubt in their eyes. Logically speaking, when she had stayed for 3 days, Guan Hongtian and the others should have stubbornly refused to turn back. It was impossible for them to come looking for them so soon. Could it be that something went wrong? Could it be that the other doctors caused the poison to act up? Xiaohe looked confused. They had just arrived, so other than Guan Hongtian and the others, no one should have come to look for them. Could it be that something happened to the others? Xiaobai said worriedly. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun heard this, their faces darkened slightly. Comparing the two situations, the second situation was more likely to happen. However, today was only their second day in Xi'an City. It was strange that they had gotten into trouble so quickly. If the others were the same, it would be a group of people. When Di Beichun opened the door, he heard an unfamiliar voice. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the unfamiliar fat man in front of her. Not only did the suspicion in her heart not disappear, but it also increased. However, as long as no one else was in trouble, they could be at ease. "Who are you?" Di Beichun asked in a deep voice. Now that they were the center of everyone's discussion, it was very unlikely that the other party had come to look for the wrong people. The fat man's face was full of smiles. His originally round face became even more joyful, and his eyes were narrowed into slits. "Sorry to disturb you, but can I come in and talk?" When Bailey Hongzhuang heard this, they looked at the man with a suspicious look on their faces. They did not intend to let him in. In the realm of chaos, no one knew when a peerless powerhouse would appear. Although they still had some confidence in their own strength in Xi'an City, it didn't mean that they could be completely unscrupulous. Who knew what the other party was planning to do by coming over at such a sensitive time? The fatty clearly understood that the two of them didn't trust him at all. He couldn't help but say, "Look at my face. Does it look like I have any killing power?" Smiling tiger. Di Beichun coldly spat out these 3 words. Fatty's face stiffened, and he said awkwardly, "All right, I know you guys don't believe me, but I really don't have any bad intentions. To tell you the truth, Guan Hongtian and I are sworn enemies. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Why don't we work together?" However, no matter how much Fatty said, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun remained unmoved. What I said is true. If you don't believe me, you can ask anyone in Xi'an City. The conflict between me and Guan Hongtian has existed for a long time. Many people know about it. I'm really not lying to you. Just believe me. Then how do you want me to prove it? Facing the 2 icy faces in front of him, Fatty felt a chill run down his spine, as if a cold wind was blowing past him. What a sin. Chapter 6505. So, Di Beichun looked indifferently at the anxious man in front of him. After the other party had said so much, he believed that what the other party said was not false, because that sincere and anxious look was not an act. Moreover, just like what he said, as long as they casually asked around, they would be able to find out the truth. If it was a lie, it would be easily exposed. But what did this have to do with them? Fatty was trying his best to explain, trying to convince Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang that everything he said was true. Suddenly hearing Di Beichun's words, he was momentarily stunned. So? Looking at Fatty's confused look, Di Beichun asked again, "What does everything you said have to do with us?" "That's why we have a chance to completely destroy Guan Hongtian if we work together." Fatty's face was serious. "They bullied you so much. How can you just take it lying down? Even if they really come to apologize 3 days later, that's absolutely not allowed. Don't you think so?" Bailey Hongzhuang kept looking at the fat man in front of her. Looking at his righteous indignation, she slowly asked, "Why not? Offending Wanbao Pavilion was not a wise move for them at the moment. Although Guanhong Tian was only a shopkeeper in Xi'an City, the Wanbao Pavilion would definitely not care about his life or death. However, if he died, it would mean that they were looking down on Wanbao Pavilion's strength. Because of this, Wanbao Pavilion would definitely not sit idly by. Yesterday's incident was indeed an accident. She did not intend to really offend such a huge figure. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Fatty was once again stunned. He stared blankly at her for a long while before he understood what she meant. For a moment, he was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, jumping 3 feet high. He said agitatedly, "How can that be? They bullied you so much. If we let them get away with it, wouldn't it be a waste?" They were the ones who suffered losses yesterday. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged nonchalantly. She didn't know why, but looking at this fatty's anxious appearance, it was indeed quite funny. That may be the case, but once you give them the antidote, they will definitely kill you. If you don't give them the antidote, they will kill you. If you want to change this outcome, the method is right in front of you, as long as you cooperate with me. You don't have to go through so much trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang crossed her arms in front of her chest and leaned against the door with a faint smile on her face. "I can poison it again." Fatty didn't know what to say. Why was the situation in front of him completely different from what he had imagined? Why were these two fellows speaking so casually, as if what they were talking about had nothing to do with them? Under his provocation, shouldn't they be as indignant as he was? Most importantly, the answers of these two people were more speechless than the other. How was he supposed to continue speaking? "Are you done?" Di Beichen asked as he looked at the fatty who was at his wit's end. Just as Fatty was thinking about what to say, he suddenly found the door in front of him closed. Bang! Crisp and efficient, without the slightest bit of mercy. Hey, I'm not done yet. Listen to me first. Chapter 6506. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to the house, but their gazes were still fixed on the courtyard's wall. Bang! The fatty flipped over the wall and entered the courtyard. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he noticed 2 pairs of eyes staring straight at him. Hee. The fatty laughed awkwardly and scratched his head. "Can the 2 of you listen to what I have to say? Actually, I'm very sincere." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She could feel his sincerity, but it was meaningless to them. "After talking for so long, what do you want?" "I want to open a shop." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. "If you want to open one, then open one. To tell you the truth, Guanhong Tian and I have long had a grudge. Back then, I should have been the shopkeeper of this Wanbao Pavilion, but that despicable Guanhong Tian spent a lot of money to bribe others. I always thought that this matter was set in stone, but who would have thought that something like this would happen in the end? After it happened, I was very dissatisfied and wanted to settle the score with Guanhong Tian, but that guy was a typical example of a dead pig not being afraid of boiling water. Not only did he not admit his mistake, he was very arrogant. I couldn't take this lying down. Over the years, I've thought of some ways to change this, but in the end, it didn't work. When the fatty spoke of this, his expression became even more serious than before, as if he had thought of something very sad. His originally happy face had unknowingly become lonely and desolate. His hands gradually clenched, his knuckles turning white. Vaguely, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen felt that there might be something more to this, but the fatty's words stopped here. Wanbao Pavilion is a big business. A shopkeeper in Cloud City is already a very important position in our eyes. But to Wanbao Pavilion, even if there is a mistake, they will let it continue. No matter how unwilling I am, I understand that there is nothing I can do. The fatty's gaze gradually became firm. His eyes were clearly a pair of squinting eyes, but at this moment, they bloomed with infinite vigor. So if I want to open a shop, at least in Cloud City, I have to defeat Wanbao Pavilion. Otherwise, I will not be able to breathe freely. Looking at the man's ambition, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly moved. She had to admit that this idea sounded very good, but Wanbao Pavilion was a big business, and many of its products came from the immortal realm. It was too difficult for him to defeat Wanbao Pavilion. In fact, as long as you're strong enough, you could defeat Guanhongtian. That should be easier than defeating Wan Bao Pavilion, right? That won't do. The fatty, he shook his head. Where he's from. Where I lost. If I win it back using other means, what's the point? Actually, what I like the most is doing business. Back when I was in the lower plains, I had always taken the route of doing business. Really? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. Usually, you spend your energy on business. How did you cultivate step by step to come to the immortal realm? This is also something I didn't expect. I have been aiming to do business since I was young. When I was 5 years old, I showed a business mind. Then it got out of hand. Chapter 6507. Actually, I don't have many hobbies. My biggest hobby is doing business. I think it's the most interesting thing. However, as my business gets better and better, the food I eat also gets better and better. In the past, I used to be a handsome man. Gradually, I became like this. It's not difficult for me to get some heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Gradually, my cultivation base also became stronger and stronger. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and even Di Beichun had a hint of emotion on their faces. As expected, there were all kinds of strange things in this world. Even the methods of ascension were different. Compared to their hard work and cultivation, the fatty's method of ascension was too easy. However, they did not doubt the authenticity of his words. For most cultivators, money was not the most important thing in the end. However, if a person's wealth was unimaginable, he could improve his strength quickly by relying on heavenly materials and earthly treasures. After all, a person who cultivated diligently without any cultivation resources could not compare to someone who ate pills like candy. Ever since I came to the realm of chaotic immortals, I felt that I could start all over again. In the past, I had already made it to this level. There was nothing I wanted to do. The situation in the realm of chaotic immortals is quite different from the lower realms. I could definitely achieve great things here. Therefore, I went to fight for the position of shopkeeper in the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. However, who would have thought that something like that would happen and ruin my plan? Everything became meaningless now. The fatty sighed. The dejected look on his face was not an act. This really made him depressed. So what does this have to do with us? Di Beichun asked slowly. Now, they understood the fatty's dream. However, the fatty wanted to open a shop. What did it have to do with them? It has to do with us. Of course, it has to do with us. Seeing that Di Beichun seemed to be moved by his words, the fatty's voice became a little more excited. He quickly walked to Di Beichun's side and said with a smile, I've heard about what happened yesterday. I heard that you have a lot of medicinal pills and immortal talismans on you. To tell you the truth, I've already opened a shop right across from the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, so I clearly saw the situation at that time. Although I wholeheartedly wanted to feed him, I have to admit that the things in the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion are not something I can compare to. Usually, the things sold in my shop are consigned by some cultivators, and the level of these things is not high, so they can't compete with the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion. But if you cooperate with me, then everything might be different. The fatty's eyes shone brightly. If I'm not wrong, you should be an immortal talisman master and an immortal apothecary, right? He had been in business for so many years, and he was already very experienced. He still had a good eye for things. Seeing that the fatty had already guessed this point, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other person did not deny it. You've said so much, and we already understand. However, although we are now in Shiyin City, we don't know when we will leave. Maybe we will leave in 2 days. Chapter 6508. Don't. You two are the most suitable candidates. How could Fatty give up? He had been searching for a long time, but had not found a suitable partner. Now that he had found these two, if he let them leave, it would be difficult to find them again in the future. There's no need to say more. We are indeed not interested in this. Di Beichun's voice was cold. They had never been interested in doing business. Just as Hong Zhuang had said, although they were temporarily staying in Shiyin City, no one knew how long they would stay. Based on their past experiences, they would usually leave after a short period of time. Despite Fatty's constant struggle, Di Beichun still refused to let him in. Hearing the wailing outside the door, Xiao He could not help but tremble. She had goosebumps. This guy is really persistent. But after being rejected like this, he probably won't come again, right? Not to mention, Master, just watching from the side was unbearable. This guy was simply, I don't think so. Master rejected it so decisively. Little White replied. However, the situation was completely different from what they had expected. The next day, Fatty appeared again with the same flattering smile on his face. He first knocked on the door. When he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He had no intention of opening the door for him, he climbed over the wall and entered. Both of you, I am very sincere. If you don't believe me, you can see that I have already formulated an excellent plan. As long as you are willing, we can achieve this goal very quickly. I promise that as long as you give me the immortal pills and immortal talismans, I will definitely help you earn enough blood spirit stones. As for the money earned, how about we split it 50-50? How about 30-70? 20-80? This ratio is really too high. After all, I have to put in a lot of effort to run the shop. All right. If it really doesn't work, you can split it 90% and I'll split 10%. How about that? I say, you can't go overboard. You can't expect me to work for free, right? You should leave. Bang! The door to the courtyard closed, and the courtyard became quiet. Who said that one woman is equal to 3 ducks? I think Fatty alone is worth 100 ducks. Bailey Hongzhuang had a helpless look on her face. She felt that ever since Fatty appeared, she had never been able to enjoy the tranquil fruit. For the first time, she felt that silence was so wonderful. On the 3rd day, Fatty appeared on time once again. With the lesson from the day before, he no longer knocked on the door. Instead, he directly climbed over the wall and entered the courtyard. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, a pure smile appeared on his face. However, the two of them were very clear that this guy was absolutely not pure and kind at all. Tell me, isn't this considered 3 visits to the thatched cottage? It's time for you to promise me. Cultivation resources are very important in the realm of chaotic immortal. Only when you have enough cultivation resources can you enter the realm of chaotic immortal. With me helping you take care of these things, everything will be much more convenient. I'm not boasting, but I'm still very strong. Fatty, can you go out by yourself today? Chapter 6509. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Yunru Oyan were listening to Fatty's sales pitch, Guan Hongtian and the others were feeling extremely heavy. Today was the 3rd day. They had spent so much time and invited so many immortal pharmacists, but the result was still the same. They were helpless. Even though everyone had tried their best to research and develop several antidotes, they were still unable to detoxify the poison. What a bunch of trash! Guan Hongtian couldn't help but curse. In these 3 days, his mood had been getting heavier and heavier. He couldn't believe that with so many people working together, they couldn't even detoxify a little girl's poison. If word got out, it would be a joke. In fact, they had already become a laughingstock. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman looked at the poison in their hands and recalled the immortal pharmacist's warning. Once the poison spread to their arms, they wouldn't be able to keep their lives. There was only a short time left, but according to the immortal pharmacist's performance, the possibility of detoxifying the poison was close to 0. Uncle Guan, what do we do now? Yun Xiaoman's face was pale. If we can't satisfy that woman, won't Brother Yi and I have to die? Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to you. Guan Hongtian's face was solemn. What happened this time made him feel deeply ashamed. However, he was now a fish on the chopping block. Since he couldn't detoxify the poison, he could only think of a way to get the antidote. Uncle, what do you plan to do? Guan looked at Guan Hongtian worriedly. No matter if it's that man or woman, they don't seem to be easy to deal with. After what happened last time, they're very jealous of us. This time, they might ask for an exorbitant price. Noticing Guan Yi's worried expression, Guan Hongtian's heart warmed. He patted him on the shoulder and said in an affirmative tone, Don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Hearing this, Guan Yi's heart also warmed. How could he not understand? Things had already come to this point. If his uncle wanted to show his sincerity, he would have to take out a lot of precious things. Only then would Bailey Hongzhuang give them the antidote. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have invited these immortal medicine masters over, wasting resources for nothing. Guanhong Tian sighed. He had spent a lot of money just to invite these immortal pharmacists. Yet, none of the problems were solved. Yin Xiaoman's face is also gloomy. The medical skills of these immortal medicine masters are really too poor. They can't even detoxify a little girl's poison. Really unlucky. Guanhong Tian faintly glanced at Yin Xiaoman, his heart also somewhat complaining. If it wasn't for Yin Xiaoman, such a thing wouldn't have happened this time. An immortal pill furnace was definitely not something that Ir needed. Now that things had come to this point, she was still criticizing others. Seriously, as if noticing Guanhong Tian's gaze, Yin Xiaoman's face also showed a trace of unnaturalness. She then lowered her head and pretended to be well-behaved and said, "Uncle Guan, I've troubled you." It didn't take long for Guanhong Tian to finish preparing everything. Then he led Guan Yi and the other two to Bailey Hongzhuang's residence. Chapter 65:10. Inside the house, Fatty was still eloquent. In order to increase his persuasiveness, he even brought up some examples of his past business experiences. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and Gu Ninji felt that this fellow was too long-winded, they had to admit that his business acumen was indeed impressive. However, this also proved that the Fatty was a shrewd fellow. All businessmen were unscrupulous. It was easy to imagine that he was able to achieve such great success in the business world. Suddenly, a series of footsteps were heard outside the door. Then, there was a knock on the door. Hearing this, the corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. It seems that the person we've been waiting for is here. Di Beichen looked at the sky. Indeed, these fellows would not believe it until the very last moment. Fatty originally had some doubts, but he quickly reacted to the identity of the person who had just arrived. He immediately rushed in front of Di Beichen and ran into the courtyard like a dog's leg. "Boss, just leave the small matter of opening the door to me. I'll do it. Fatty's face was full of smiles. The way he followed Di Beichen wholeheartedly showed that he already regarded Di Beichen as his own boss. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Fatty was indeed a first-class businessman. His personality was incomparable to others. As the Fatty approached the courtyard gate, his expression turned gloomy. Guanhong Tian, after waiting for so long, they finally saw this fellow suffer. Creak. The courtyard door slowly opened. Guanhong Tian and the other two had smiles on their faces when they heard the footsteps. Since they were here to ask for medicine, they naturally had to welcome them with smiles. However, as soon as the door was opened, Guanhong Tian saw a face he did not expect. "Gong Jun, what are you doing here?" Guanhong Tian's face immediately turned cold. For a moment, he even suspected that he had come to the wrong place. Almost everyone knew about the dispute between him and Gong Jun. What he did at that time was indeed disgraceful, but as the saying goes, all is fair in war. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. However, this Gong Jun just couldn't be serious about this matter. Originally, he thought that would be fine after a while. Who would have thought that this guy was so stubborn in this aspect? Not only did he make this matter known to everyone, he even opened another shop opposite the Wanbao Pavilion. Fortunately, this guy's foundation couldn't be compared to the Wanbao Pavilion, but this guy still slapped him in the face. For a moment, the eyes of the enemies blazed with hatred when they met. Guan Yi was also a little surprised. Although he hadn't been in Shiyun City for long, the person in front of him was no stranger at all. "Why can't I be here?" Gong Jun's face was filled with pride as he looked at Guanhong Tian with disdain. "You dare to offend my boss? You're really an idiot. Who's your boss?" Guanhong Tian frowned. Gong Jun's inexplicable appearance here was already very strange, and now he said something like this. Usually he was very concerned about this sworn enemy of his, but he had never heard of this guy acknowledging someone as his boss. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen slowly walked over. Gong Jun immediately walked to Di Beichen's side and said, "This is my boss." Di Beichen turned to look at Gong Jun, only to see that this guy's face was filled with pride, without the slightest bit of guilt. That look, it was as if he had really accepted him as a little brother. Chapter 65:11. However, in the blink of an eye, Gong Jun had become Di Beichen's follower. Wasn't this too fast? Most importantly, even though Di Beichen did not say anything, he could tell from the look in his eyes that the two of them were quite familiar with each other. Guan Hongtian's heart sank. It was already troublesome to come here today to ask for the antidote. Now that Gong Jun was here, things would become even more troublesome. You're here today to ask for the antidote from my sister-in-law, right? The fat man looked at Guan Hongtian with his sharp eyes. It was as if he had seen through everything. Guan Hongtian's expression was a little awkward. He had never taken Gong Jun seriously. Now that he was being manipulated by him, it was a terrible feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Gong Jun quietly. She was thinking about this guy. His name is Gong Jun. With his appearance, he doesn't seem to be related to this name at all. That's right. Guan Hongtian suppressed the gloominess in his heart. After all, they were here to ask for help today. Miss, we came here today with sincerity. We hope that you can give us the antidote. Guan Hongtian's face was full of smiles. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile and handed a Chinquan bag to her. It was impossible to associate him with the arrogant look he had earlier. Bailey Hongzhuang took the Chinquan bag and glanced at it. It was indeed very rich. This guy must have known that she would not give in easily, so he brought a lot of things with him. However, she did not know enough about the situation in the realm of chaotic immortals. She did not know if Guan Hongtian would feel the pinch for these things. He couldn't help but look at Gong Jun. Among them, Gong Jun was probably the one who knew Guan Hongtian the best. With that thought in mind, Bailey Hongzhuang handed the Chinquan bag to Gong Jun and said, "Take a look." Gong Jun didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would hand over the Chinquan bag to him. His eyes lit up, and he eagerly took it. "Sister-in-law, don't worry. Leave this matter to me." Gong Jun naturally understood that today was an opportunity to show his loyalty. If his performance could satisfy the other party, there might be a chance for cooperation. Guan Hongtian's face turned ashen when he saw this scene. He was originally very confident in his preparations. After all, these cultivation resources were already extremely abundant for the cultivators of Shiyun City. However, he never thought that Gong Jun would be here. He knew this guy too well. If it wasn't for the fact that Gong Jun couldn't compare with the things in the Wanbao Pavilion, he might have really been defeated by this guy. Most importantly, with this guy's profiteering nature, he definitely wouldn't give up easily. After Gong Jun saw the contents of the Chinquan bag, his expression became unfathomable. "Shopkeeper Guan, this is 2 lives. Don't you think it's a little insincere for you to only bring these things here?" Guan Hongtian's face turned cold. "What's wrong with me? These things are already a lot. Take them out and ask other people. Isn't it enough?" "Huh?" Gong Jun smiled faintly. His narrowed eyes flashed with shrewdness. "These things are indeed a lot for other people, but who are you? You're the shopkeeper of the Wanbao Pavilion. With your wealth, these things are just a drop in the ocean." Chapter 65:12. Hearing Gong Jun's words, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman couldn't help but look at him. Although they knew that Gong Jun and Guan Hongtian had a grudge against each other, but from what he said, it seemed that their uncle didn't bring many things. These things were prepared by their uncle alone, and he knew that these things were related to their lives. Under such circumstances, if their uncle still did this, what was the meaning of this? Guan Hongtian also felt Guan Yi's gaze, and his face immediately flushed red. He roared, "Gong Jun, don't bully me. These things are enough to show my sincerity. Aren't you deliberately targeting me because of our daily grudges?" As he spoke, Guan Hongtian looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Miss, these cultivation resources are enough to last you for a long time. Don't listen to this villain's slanderous words." However, Bailey Hongzhuang ignored him and only gave Gong Jun a look. Guan Hongtian's family must be very rich, and he might even have some very precious treasures. If these things could be taken out, it would be no doubt for the best. Gong Jun immediately became more confident. "Shopkeeper Guan, don't say these useless things. Anyway, you don't have enough things, so I can't give you the antidote." "Then what do you want?" Guan Hongtian saw this and understood that with Gong Jun here, this matter would not be easily resolved. I heard that you have a 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. Gong Jun's face was filled with a complacent smile, and his narrow eyes shone brightly. As soon as these words came out, Guan Hongtian's pupils shrank, and his face instantly turned ashen. He never thought that Gong Jun would covet his 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. He had spent a tremendous amount of effort to obtain this treasure. Just this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine was already more precious than all of the cultivation resources here. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also brightened. She never thought that Guan Hongtian would have such a treasure. This 10,000-year purple blood vine could help Radiant Sun Realm cultivators increase their chances of breaking through to the elementary immortal realm. Because it was simply too difficult to break through to the elementary immortal stage, anything that could be of some use was extremely precious. Normally, a 1,000-year-old purple blood vine was already extremely valuable, so the value of this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine was obvious. Gong Jun's expression also changed. He naturally knew about this matter, but if he were to hand over the purple blood vine because of the poison, then they would really suffer a great loss this time. No, absolutely not. Guan Hongtian objected without hesitation. Although he usually lived a leisurely life, it was because no matter how hard he cultivated, he could not touch the barrier of breaking through the elementary celestial stage. He had no choice but to pay a huge price to obtain the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. He wanted to take the opportunity to increase his strength. If he had to hand this thing over, he would definitely vomit blood. Gong Jun wasn't surprised by Guan Hongtian's objection. Guan Hongtian, so you're going to give up the lives of your nephew and this young lady? Gong Jun raised his eyebrows and said casually, "That's true. The other party is only your nephew. Why do you have to sacrifice so much? As a cultivator, the most practical thing is to increase your cultivation." His mocking words were like sharp blades that provoked Guan Hongtian. If he could, he wished that he could slap this despicable guy to death. Chapter 65:13. Since you don't want to, then please see them out. Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang turned around at the same time, clearly not willing to listen to anything else. Seeing Gong Jun about to close the door, Guan Hongtian hurriedly said, "Don't go too far. If we give up, then you won't have any cultivation resources left." "Are you kidding? Does my boss look like someone who lacks these things?" Gong Jun looked at Guan Hongtian with disdain. "Don't look down on people like a dog." The courtyard door gradually closed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun didn't have the slightest intention of relenting. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman's hearts had already sunk. If they missed today, they would really only have a dead end. Just as the door was about to close, Guan Hongtian seemed to have made a shocking decision and said, "Okay, I promise you." After saying that, Guan Hongtian seemed to have aged a few decades in an instant. His whole person became dispirited. The door creaked open, and what came into view was Gong Jun's joyful smile. Just that. Don't mention how dazzling that smile was. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. They didn't think that Guan Hongtian would go to this extent for Guan Yi. After all, many people don't care about the life and death of others for their own benefit. Not to mention, Guan Yi wasn't even his son. Hee. Wouldn't it have been better if Guan Hongtian had agreed earlier? Why bother doing this? Gong Jun said with a smile. Come, please come in." Looking at the man's flattering appearance, Guan Hongtian felt as disgusted as if he had eaten a fly. "Guan Hongtian, such an important thing, I think you should have it with you, right?" Guan Hongtian's face was ashen, but since he had already made a decision, he slowly took out the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. "It's all here. Now can you give us the antidote?" "Of course, we always keep our promises." Gong Jun turned his head to look at Bailey Hongzhuang, only to see her throw a porcelain bottle directly at him. After receiving the bottle, Gong Jun handed it over to Guan Hongtian. Seeing this, Guan Hongtian didn't delay and immediately gave the antidote to Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman. Until the poison in their hands began to dissipate, he finally let out a sigh of relief. In the next moment, a sinister look appeared in his eyes. "It's not that easy to take my things." Guan Yi stood beside Guan Hongtian. You've gone too far. Not only poison, but also take the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. Give it back. At the same time, there's TSS, says facing TSS, S boss. I told you, this guy is definitely not that honest. Gong Jun clicked his tongue. It's been so long, but your temperament hasn't changed at all. It seems that you haven't suffered enough this time. Guan Hongtian was originally full of confidence, but after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's calm expressions, he inexplicably felt a little guilty. Our boss already guessed that you would do this, so... Gong Jun stretched his tone, indicating for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan to continue. Chapter 65:14. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's nonchalant words, Guan Hongtian and the other two were petrified. Wasn't this like the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? They were scheming against each other, and each other was scheming against them. Most importantly, they had already handed over the antidote. So why was it returned to its original position? How could you do this? Guan Hongtian cursed. This was driving him crazy. In the end, it's all because of shopkeeper Guan's character. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes were slightly raised, but there wasn't the slightest bit of warmth in them. Originally, I planned to give you the antidote if shopkeeper Guan left obediently, but now it seems that I was prepared. Guan Hongtian's face was ashen. His eyes fell on Gong Jun. He believed that this had something to do with Gong Jun. Young master, young lady, I only did this out of anger. Why don't you let me go? I promise that something like this will never happen again. Guan Hongtian had no choice but to speak softly. He had already been squeezed dry of everything he could offer. If this happened again, he would be driven crazy. Shopkeeper Guan, don't you think it's ridiculous to say this now? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She also felt that this matter was troublesome. If the other party wasn't the shopkeeper of Wanbao Pavilion, it would be fine to kill him. However, he had such a powerful force behind him. Killing him would be troublesome. At this moment, Gong Jun suddenly came to Di Beichan's side and said with a smile, "Boss, madam, I have a plan. Can it work?" "Go ahead," Di Beichan said indifferently. Originally, he didn't take Gong Jun seriously. However, after what happened just now, he realized that this guy was quite capable. If he could come up with a good idea, then it would be good. It's like this. As Gong Jun explained his plan, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan's eyes lit up. They had to admit that this was a good idea. Guan Hongtian's face darkened. He knew that Gong Jun was up to no good when he saw the look on his face. A moment later, Gong Jun said, "Shopkeeper Guan, although you were in the wrong first, my boss is magnanimous and doesn't intend to hold it against you." Hearing this, Guan Hongtian was slightly stunned. He didn't expect such a surprise. If anyone dares to attack my boss and madam, then they will be against you. If anything happens to them, even if you have to give up your position as the shopkeeper, you must kill them. Gong Jun smiled and said, "How is it? You don't need to do anything. You just need to say a few words. Isn't it simple?" Looking at the other party's expression, Guan Hongtian wanted to vomit blood. Indeed, it was only a few words. After saying this, it was equivalent to completely eliminating the possibility of him attacking. Because if he attacked again, it would be equivalent to slapping his own face. Most importantly, based on the commotion caused by the past few days, even a fool would know that he was being coerced. This was equivalent to openly telling everyone that he had lost. What? You've thought about it for so long. Are you unwilling? I agree. Guan Hongtian gnashed his teeth as he glared at Gong Jun. What he hated the most right now was that he hadn't killed this guy earlier, which had led to this situation. Chapter 65:15. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan didn't have to worry about what happened next. This was because Gong Jun had already taken all the responsibility for this matter. He even patted his chest and promised that he would handle this matter properly. Early the next morning, that round figure had already appeared in the courtyard. After the events of the past few days, they had already gotten used to Gong Jun's daily appearance and didn't find it strange to see him climbing over the wall. "Boss, madam, Guan Hongtian has already spread the news. We can rest assured now." Gong Jun smiled. Based on that fellow's character, He won't cause any more trouble this time. But he asked me to ask you when you'll give him the antidote. I didn't poison him at all. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. WH. What? Gong Jun was stunned. If I wanted to poison him, I could have done it right in front of him. Why would I go through so much trouble? Ryu's pretty face was full of carelessness. I planned to poison him yesterday. I didn't expect them to agree without any suspicion. So why waste my poison powder? Gong Jun stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang for a long while. It was precisely because her methods had completely shocked Guan Hongtian that they didn't even let the immortal medicine masters take a look when they returned. Even if they said that he wasn't poisoned, he probably wouldn't believe them, because the previous poisoning incident had already proved that Bailey Hongzhuang's poison skills were much stronger than those people's. Madam, you're too smart. Gong Jun's face was full of surprise. I thought I was already a profiteer. I didn't expect you to be even more profiteer than me, huh? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched. Profiteer? It shouldn't be a good word, right? Then I'll go tell Guan Hongtian this news. I'll make sure he dies from anger. Seeing Gong Jun run out again, Bailey Hongzhuang looked worried. She turned to look at the man beside her. Beichin, will he be okay if he goes alone? Yesterday, Guan Hongtian had been caught red-handed. Naturally, there was nothing he could do. Now that he knew there was no such evidence, no one knew what he would do in a fit of anger. Don't worry. Since he's been fighting with Guan Hongtian for so long and is still safe and sound, it proves that he has some tricks up his sleeve. Deep Beichan smiled and placed his hands on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, massaging them. You haven't had a good rest because this guy comes here every day. Do you want to take a rest? The man's hands seemed to have magical powers. His gentle and light touch made her entire body relax. No need. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. I'm not that weak. By the way, Gong Jun, what do you plan to do? Bailey Hongzhuang leaned on Di Beichen's legs and looked at him curiously. Gong Jun had put in a lot of effort this time. If they didn't agree to his request, it would indeed be unreasonable. He's already called me. That's so smoothly. Smoothly? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She immediately understood that Di Beichen was referring to Gong Jun, calling him boss every day. At first, she thought it was a little strange, but as she listened, she gradually got used to it. Actually, Gong Jun is quite smart. With him handling these matters, we don't have to worry too much. Chapter 65-16. The hall was shrouded in demonic qi. It was a terrifying black, dotted with dazzling gold and red. A woman sat quietly in the hall. Her peerlessly fair face was graceful and luxurious. Under the contrast of her black and red dress, her smooth, jade-like legs were faintly revealed, making her look even more seductive and alluring. The woman was as cold as ice, and her eyes were filled with an everlasting chill. Have you found any news? First Princess, we have already sent people out to look for him. But you know the situation of that barrier. It's not easy to break it. The man half knelt on the ground with a worried look on his face. That's not what I want to hear. I only want results. The woman waved her long sleeves. Her already cold face became even colder. Could it be? Your subordinates are a bunch of trash? I have waited for so many years. If I miss this opportunity, I will bury all of you. The man shuddered and hurriedly said, First Princess, we have been trying to find a way to break this barrier all these years. Now we're getting closer and closer. Thanks to Third Princess's efforts, a small crack has appeared in the barrier. Someone has broken through. Oh, the woman crossed her legs. Her beautiful, jade-like legs made one's mouth go dry. However, the man didn't even dare to look at them. He just lowered his head. This terrifying pressure made him feel extremely terrified. Who's the one who broke out? It's the man's body kept trembling. He wanted to say the result, but was worried that the First Princess would be furious. The woman glanced at the man indifferently. She already understood. Speed up. If anything happens to him, you should know the consequences. Understood, understood. This subordinate understands. Boss, madam, you didn't see Guan Hongtian's expression. It was so wonderful, haha. Gong Jun was happy. He had been suppressed by Guan Hongtian for so long. This time, he finally had a chance to hold his head high. Just thinking about it made him happy. Since the matter has been resolved, why did you come here today? Gong Jun was slightly stunned. He immediately said with a bitter face, Boss, you can't turn your back on me. I've risked my life to do so many things for you. If you kick me away just like that, wouldn't that be too heartless? Risking my life, isn't that right? Guan Hongtian hated me now. If he knew that the boss was no longer protecting me, he would definitely take the opportunity to kill me. Io, why is my life so bitter? Gong Jun sat down on the ground. He was obviously acting like a rogue. As long as Di Beichun didn't agree, he wouldn't get up today. Get up. I won't get up if you don't agree. Are you sure you don't want to get up? Di Beichun squinted at Gong Jun. I won't. Before Gong Jun could finish his words, he realized that something was wrong. He immediately got up with a smile on his face. Get up, get up. Boss, since you agreed, I have to get up. Seeing this, Di Beichun's lips curled into a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang even laughed out loud. This guy, his personality was quite good. Boss, why don't I take you to see my shop? Gong Jun's eyes lit up. Don't worry, I'll run it well. I won't embarrass you. Go see it when you have time. I vaguely remember it. Chapter 65:17. Oh. Gong Jun was a little disappointed. He'd been prepared to take advantage of this opportunity to make a big splash. Sure enough, this matter wasn't important to his boss at all. But that didn't matter. He just needed to take care of this shop. It would come in handy one day. Gong Jun, I'll leave this to you. Bailey Hongzhuang handed a Chinquan pouch to Gong Jun. What's this? Gong Jun took the Chinquan pouch in a daze. In fact, he'd been in a daze ever since his boss had agreed to let him follow him. Before coming here today, he'd been worried that he'd be rejected again. After all, this matter had already been dealt with. However, he'd been prepared to pester his boss to the bitter end. Now that he'd been accepted, he was a little confused. This situation was much simpler than he'd thought. Looking at the man's godlike face, Gong Jun couldn't help but sigh inwardly. No matter what, this was good news. Why are you in a daze? Bailey Hongzhuang saw Gong Jun staring at Di Beichun in a daze. She couldn't help but wave her hand in front of his face. Are you in a daze? You're not a girl. How can you be so entranced by Di Beichun? Di Beichun glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly. She really dared to say anything now. Gong Jun snapped out of his daze and smiled. I just can't believe this is all real. Haha. When he saw the contents of the Chinquan pouch, Gong Jun was pleasantly surprised. His face was full of disbelief. These are all for me to sell? Of course. Di Beichun replied. These things aren't very high grade, but they should be enough for ordinary cultivators in Xi'an City. Of course. Gong Jun's face was full of excitement. Normally, people only use first-grade immortal pills and first-grade immortal talismans. There were rank 1, rank 2, and rank 3 here. Guan Hongtian's Wanbao Pavilion only sold these. Although we have less variety compared to them, I am confident that we will be able to defeat them. Boss, madam, don't worry, I won't let you down. We believe in you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Previously, when she and Beichun were in the abandoned immortal forest, she had learned alchemy and rune techniques. Therefore, she had kept many Tier 1 and Tier 2 alchemists. Originally, they thought that they wouldn't need it for the time being. Now that Gong Jun's shop happened to need it, they might as well take it out. Boss, aren't you worried that I'll run away with the items? Gong Jun couldn't help but ask. With so many items, their value wasn't low. If you use people, don't doubt them. If you doubt them, don't use them. Di Beichun looked at Gong Jun. If you really run away, then I'll treat it as if I've misjudged you. As soon as Di Beichun finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that Gong Jun was standing there without saying anything. She was a little confused. With this guy's personality, it was impossible for him to be silent for so long. When she turned her eyes, she found that Gong Jun's eyes were red as he looked at Di Beichun, and she was immediately dumbfounded. Gong Jun, you don't tell me you're going to cry? Gong Jun blinked and said excitedly, Heavens, I'm so touched. I've been alone since I came to the realm of chaotic immortal. I don't have any friends. Now that I have a boss and he trusts me so much, How can I not be touched? Wow, the heavens really have eyes. Chapter 65:18. After Gong Jun received the immortal pills and immortal talismans, he busied himself with managing the store. In his own words, he would definitely use the store's results to prove his ability and let everyone wait for his results. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were not worried. They believed that Gong Jun had the ability to do so. Moreover, even if the business did not do well, it would not be a big deal. Di Beichun, I've studied this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. Coincidentally, Gong Jun also sent over the other medicinal ingredients that I needed. I plan to refine it into an elixir. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine in her hand. This thing's effects should be very good, which was why Guan Hongtian treasured it so much. However, although this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine's medicinal effects are very good, if too many elixirs are refined, the effects will be greatly reduced. I've thought about it, and in order to maximize the effects of this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine, I can only refine 3 elixirs at most. Maintaining the medicinal effects is the most important. Di Beichun nodded. If they ignored the medicinal effects for the sake of quantity, it would be a waste of this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on Di Beichun's lap and wrapped her arms around the man's slender neck with a slight smile on her lips. The man who was originally abstinent suddenly became charming and gentle. He reached out and clasped the woman's head and kissed her. The woman's small face flushed red. I'm talking business with you. Are you sure you're using this posture to talk business with me? Di Beichun raised his eyebrows and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, teasing her with a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a little guilty. It seemed that she had sat on his lap first. It's broad daylight and the world is clear. I only sat down because there were no chairs nearby. With that, she prepared to stand up. She could not possibly say that she had seduced him, right? Before she could stand up, Di Beichun's big hand pulled her back again. All right, I won't tease you anymore. It's because my wife is too delicious that it's easy for your husband to misunderstand. How about that? Seeing the man speak so seriously, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that something was wrong. Was it really okay for this guy to ask this question so seriously? I'm thinking that Gong Jun played a huge role in obtaining this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. After I refine the pills, I will give one of them to him. What do you think? She wasn't a greedy person. Originally, they didn't even know that Guan Hongtian had a 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. If it weren't for Gong Jun's help, they naturally wouldn't have been able to obtain it. It's fine as long as my wife makes the decision. Di Beichun smiled faintly. After so many years, Hongzhuang's temperament had not changed at all. However, this was what made Hongzhuang so cute. Then I'll go refine the pills. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly stood up and ran into the room like a wisp of smoke. Ever since he didn't train with others, Beichun's state had changed. After Gong Jun put the pills and talismans up for sale in the shop, the number of customers in the shop didn't increase. Shopkeeper, we didn't have anything to sell before. Since we have something now, should we advertise it? The attendant's eyes sparkled with excitement. His shopkeeper had always been good and had spent a lot of effort to defeat the Wanbao Pavilion. It was just that they had too few things in their shop. This was what made them feel the most helpless. Chapter 65:19. No need. Gong Jun smiled faintly and waved his hand. Although we don't have as many customers as the Wanbao Pavilion, we still have a lot of customers. If we deliberately publicize or organize activities, the Wanbao Pavilion will definitely fight us to the death with their hatred for us. Currently, we can't compete with them in terms of financial resources. This method is not beneficial to us. Hearing Gong Jun's words, the attendant suddenly understood. Originally, he was worried that the shopkeeper would not think of a way. Now, he understood that the shopkeeper had already thought through all of this. So, find a few people and spread the news. Say that our shop has a new batch of high-quality goods at a reasonable price. Gong Jun chuckled. He knew very well how quickly this kind of rumor spread. It wouldn't take long for everyone to know. Be smart when you do this. Don't let others find out. The attendant stared blankly at Gong Jun. At this moment, he finally understood the shopkeeper's plan. Come to think of it, this should be the most cost-effective method, right? For a moment, he even wondered if the shopkeeper had said so much before because he could not bear to spend money. After successfully refining the pills, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that Gong Jun had not come for a few days. She was a little surprised. With this guy's personality, it was not his usual style for him to endure for so long without appearing. Di Beichen, should we go to Gong Jun's shop to take a look? No matter what, they were still business partners. It was indeed very unprofessional of him not to visit for so many days. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's curious little eyes, Di Beichen smiled faintly. Okay. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also came over immediately. It was rare for them to go out, so they definitely would not miss it. As the two of them arrived at Gong Jun's shop, the scene in front of them was beyond their expectations. The business of the pavilion of 1,000 treasures was dull, and there was barely a single customer. On the other hand, Gong Jun's pavilion of immortal treasures was crowded with people coming and going. It was obvious that business was booming. Am I seeing things? Xiao He was dumbfounded. According to the situation of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion and the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, the situation should be reversed. However, when it rubbed its eyes, the scene in front of it remained the same. The last time we came, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion didn't have much strength. How did it change so much in just a few days? Xiao Bai was also in disbelief. Wasn't this change too fast? I got it. Xiao He's eyes lit up. It must be because the products made by the two masters are too good. That's why there's so many customers. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Both of them were surprised. It seems that we've underestimated Gong Jun's business acumen, Di Beichen said in a low voice. The products that they brought out were indeed good, but the Pavilion of 1,000 Treasures definitely had many good treasures as well. In such a short time, Gong Jun was able to bring the entire shop back to life. After all, he was capable. I didn't expect that the little brother who suddenly came to find me would be so capable. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. For them, this was a good thing. Dear guests, please come in. An attendant smiled when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He and welcomed them in. Chapter 65:20. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the waiter's polite attitude and nodded in her heart. In terms of attitude, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion was indeed much better than the Wanbao Pavilion. Not only that, she noticed that the layout inside was also simple and clear. The lighting was very bright, and the shelves looked expensive, but there were no extra decorations. Because of this, the entire Immortal Treasure Pavilion seemed more spacious. There were so many people gathered here, but didn't seem crowded at all. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't look like they were here to buy anything, and even looked around and commented from time to time, the waiter didn't have any dissatisfaction. He just asked the two of them to look around, and then went to greet the other customers. His attitude didn't make anyone unhappy at all. The Wanbao Pavilion really chose the wrong shopkeeper. If he had chosen Gong Jun, the business of the Wanbao Pavilion would definitely be much better now. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. She began to believe that what Gong Jun said earlier was true. This guy, perhaps he really did use his wealth to increase his cultivation level. Just as the two of them were talking, a voice full of surprise suddenly sounded. Boss, you're here. Gong Jun's round figure was as agile as a fish in this crowded shop. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the two of them. At this moment, his face full of meat was filled with an excited smile. If one looked closely, it was inexplicably cute. Boss, madam, are you satisfied with the shop situation? I originally planned to invite you to take a look in a few days, but I didn't expect you to take the initiative to come. I knew that you must be thinking about me in your hearts. I'm really touched. Noticing that Gong Jun's eyes were slightly red because he was touched, Di Beichen couldn't help but say, Stop. Gong Jun's expression immediately froze, and he forcibly suppressed it under Di Beichen's gaze. Di Beichen rubbed his eyebrows helplessly. This little brother that appeared out of nowhere was not only good at pestering people, but also had a big problem. He was too emotional. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Gong Jun was really too interesting. On the path of cultivation, she had seen all kinds of cold arrogant and despotic cultivators. But a person as emotional as Gong Jun was really rare. This guy's emotions came and went quickly. In the blink of an eye, he had returned to normal and pulled the two of them to the side. "Boss, madam, you don't know how good our Immortal Treasure Pavilion's business has been these past 2 days." Guanhan Tian was almost angered to death by me. However, no matter how angry he is, it's useless. After all, his things aren't as good as ours. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. "You mean that the things sold in the store are actually better than those sold in the Wanbao Pavilion?" They were all immortal elixirs, so logically speaking, there shouldn't be any difference. Most importantly, when she came in, she had already taken note of the prices of some elixirs. If she remembered correctly, there wasn't much difference between the prices of these elixirs and those sold in the Wanbao Pavilion. Under such circumstances, it was really surprising that they could still hold the advantage. Chapter 65:21. When the news first came out, many people thought that I was the one who hired them. Although it wasn't good news, some people didn't believe it, so they came to the store to buy elixirs. At first, I didn't take it to heart, and even thought that it might be a trap set up by Guanhan Tian to make everyone hate the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. I even thought of a countermeasure, but I didn't expect that it wasn't Guanhan Tian's doing at all. Gradually, many people said that our Immortal Spirit Pills were better than the Immortal Spirit Pills of the Thousand Treasures Pavilion. As more and more people said this, the rumors spread and became more and more real. For this reason, I did some research and found that the Immortal Spirit Pills of the Madam were indeed better. Gong Jun's eyes shone with excitement and worship. "Madam, your alchemy skills are really amazing. The same medicinal ingredients can have such an effect in your hands. It's really amazing." Not only that, after everyone found out that the Immortal Spirit Pills were better, some people turned their attention to the Immortal Talismans, wanting to know if there was anything special about them. Who would have thought that they guessed right? The Immortal Talismans were better than the ordinary ones. As a result, our Immortal Treasure Pavilion's business became better and better. Gong Jun's eyes narrowed into slits in ecstasy. "Boss, you're really amazing. How did you do it? I've been in Xi'an City for so long, but I've never encountered such a thing." Bailey Hongzhuang listened to Gong Jun's words and was secretly puzzled. She thought that Gong Jun might be taking the opportunity to flatter them, but she vaguely heard some customers saying the same thing. It was because the price was slightly lower than the Thousand Treasures Pavilions, and the medicinal effects were better that it attracted so many cultivators. "Is that true?" Di Beichun asked slowly. Yes. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. "I'm telling the truth." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun felt even more emotional. Since they came to the Immortal Realm, they had been learning from their master and had never seen other people's Immortal Spirit Pills and Immortal Talismans, so they were completely unaware of such a thing. Since this matter was true, it also proved how strong his master was. Because of their attainments in alchemy and talisman techniques, their two disciples were able to perform so well. "Boss, I've recorded all the money we earned recently. I plan to give it to you in 2 days, but since you're here today, I'll give it to you first." Gong Jun smiled and led the two of them towards the inner courtyard. "Gong Jun, that's not why we're here today. I know, boss and madam. You must have wanted to see how this store is. Immortal spirit, immortal, immortal. Immortal, 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 immortal. Immortal, 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 immortal. Now from the outside, it doesn't look worse than the Thousand Treasures Pavilion." Chapter 65:22. How can that be? Gong Jun hurriedly waved his hand. His usually smiling face revealed a rare, serious expression. "Boss, it's already very good that you're willing to let me sell the immortal pills and talismans. As for the renovation of the shop, that's part of my job. I'm the boss." Di Beichun's cold voice sounded, but it immediately silenced the noisy Gong Jun. The meaning of this sentence was very simple. I'm the boss, and I have the final say. Under these circumstances, could Gong Jun still refute? Of course not, unless he didn't want to be the boss anymore. That was absolutely impossible. Looking at Gong Jun, who was still alive and kicking just a second ago, and the next second he had become resigned to his fate, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt very funny. This Gong Jun seemed to have set his mind on Di Beichun. Normally, when would there be such a person who was so dead set on meeting? However, Gong Jun was very sincere, so sincere that no one could doubt him. All right, it's time to talk about business. Weren't we talking about business just now? Gong Jun was slightly startled. Anything related to money was a big deal. As he spoke, Gong Jun couldn't help but say, "Boss, I don't want to say this, but you don't value money too much. As the saying goes, money makes the world go round. How can you just casually give me money? This kind of thinking is absolutely unacceptable. As the saying goes, every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. You should keep it for yourself or your wife." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched slightly. This guy's brain is indeed wired differently for normal people. So now that I've given him the money, he's still not satisfied? "Will you cheat me of my money?" Di Beichun slowly said. "Of course not." Gong Jun patted his chest and said seriously, "Since I've recognized you as my boss, I naturally won't cheat you. Isn't that enough?" Di Beichun asked. Perhaps they had to be careful of other people, but for some reason, he felt that Gong Jun was a trustworthy person. This kind of trust came a little inexplicable. Gong Jun paused for a moment before he understood. His eyes were filled with gratitude. "Boss, it turns out that you trust me so much." "Stop." Di Beichun's voice rang out again. He was obviously a man, but his emotions were so rich that it made people want to beat him up. Gong Jun curled his lips and stopped himself from being touched. He said, "Boss, don't worry. I will definitely make this money more and more." "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang then handed the pill to Gong Jun. "Gong Jun, this is for you." "What is this? You want me to sell a new immortal spirit pill that Madame refined?" "No, this is for you to consume." Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. "Didn't you help us snatch the 10,000-year purple blood vine last time? I refined it into pills. There are exactly 3 of them. This one is for you." Gong Jun looked at the porcelain bottle in his hand. His expression froze for a moment, and he fell silent. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. This guy's personality was so strange. He couldn't be unhappy that she gave him a pill, right? Just like when Di Beichun gave him money just now, he was unhappy? Ahem. Bailey Hongzhuang gave Di Beichun a look, indicating whether they should leave first. At this moment, Gong Jun grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's arm emotionally. His eyes were as bright as stars. "Madam, I'm really touched." Chapter 65-23. Di Beichun's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang's arm, which was being grabbed by Gong Jun. His eyes narrowed slightly, and a light quietly flashed across them. Gong Jun was busy being moved when he suddenly felt the surrounding temperature drop. He wondered what was going on, and then noticed his boss's gaze. Almost immediately, Gong Jun hurriedly let go of his hand. Boss. I was just a little excited." Di Beichun didn't say anything. He just looked at Gong Jun indifferently, but the latter felt a wave of pressure. Well, now he understood how much Boss valued Madam. "Since we've already given the pills, let's go back." Di Beichun grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. He didn't know if it was intentional or not, but his hand just happened to be where Gong Jun was grabbing previously. Gong Jun was a shrewd person and naturally knew that his actions just now had caused Boss's dissatisfaction. How could he let Boss leave just like that? "Boss, I heard that the City Lord Mansion is about to hold a monster slaying competition. Would you be interested?" Hearing this, Di Beichun's footsteps paused slightly, and a trace of interest appeared in his handsome eyes. "Monster slaying competition? That's right." Gong Jun nodded repeatedly and walked to Di Beichun's side. This event has already been circulated, but it hasn't officially started yet. It said that it will officially start in half a month, and now it's the registration stage. According to past experience, the rewards given by the City Lore Mansion should be very rich, so there will be many cultivators signing up for the monster slaying competition every time. Does the demon in the monster slaying competition refer to demon beasts? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little curious. Usually, demon beasts that had reached this level of cultivation could already transform into humans. If they attacked, wouldn't it feel like killing people? Moreover, once these demon beasts transformed into human form and barged into them, who would be able to distinguish them? That's not it. Gong Jun smiled and shook his head. It's a demon, not a demon beast. Monster. It seems that around 10 years ago, some monsters began to appear in the outskirts of some cities. Some of these monsters are demonic beasts, and some are plants. They look ordinary and mediocre. If you get too close to them, you might lose your life. Back then, when these monsters first appeared, they caused a huge commotion. Because no one had come into contact with these monsters, they didn't know what they were. After more than 10 years, everyone gradually gained some experience with this monster. In short, many of these monsters are black, and many of them are proficient in the power of darkness. Although the power of darkness has always been disliked in the immortal realms, in fact, everyone knows very well that the power of darkness is very strong. Ordinary people are simply no match for it. Gong Jun lowered his voice, his eyes filled with disdain. Ever since these monsters appeared, on one hand, everyone was shocked by the power of darkness. On the other hand, they were even more ostracized by the power of darkness. Boss, if you don't know much about these monsters, I think you should take advantage of this time to learn more about them. Otherwise, when the time comes to register, you will definitely be at a disadvantage if you don't understand the habits of these monsters at all. Di Baichen nodded slightly. He was indeed somewhat interested in these monsters. Chapter 65-24. Gong Jun, from the looks of it, you seem to know a lot about these monsters. Have you participated in this monster slaughtering competition before? Gong Jun shook his head. I haven't participated in it. You know that what I'm most interested in is doing business. I don't do things like brandishing weapons. Look at my body. You know, I can't starve myself to thin just to participate in a competition. Looking at Gong Jun's face full of love for the meat on his body, Bailey Hongzhuang already didn't know what words to use to express her feelings. If Xiao Xuanzi also knew Gong Jun, he probably wouldn't have been so serious about losing weight. The reason why I know about this is because the monster slaughtering competition is about to start, so everyone wants to buy some insurance during this period of time. The shop's business is so good, it has a lot to do with the monster slaughtering competition. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. Indeed, whenever they want to go out to gain experience, almost everyone will prepare all the things they may need. Once he needed them, these things might be able to save his life. Boss, I heard that Yin Xiaoman and Guan are also going to participate. Moreover, Guan Hontian has been trying his best to prepare things for Guan Yi so that he can perform well in a monster slaughtering competition. Gong Jun's eyes revealed a trace of gloomy light. That little bastard originally wasn't from Shiyin City, but with his strength, the success rate of participating in Shiyun City's competition will be higher, so he came here now. This Guan Hontian really takes care of his nephew. Gong Jun, Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed. Even a biological father and son may not be able to do this, let alone an uncle. Gong Jun chuckled, lowered his voice, and said, Madam, there's something you don't know. Is there some inside story? As the saying goes, there is no hatred in the world for no reason, and there is no love for no reason. Guan Hontian was definitely a snobbish person. He was extremely selfish. If it was only his nephew, why would he sacrifice so much? You don't know how much he had to pay for the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. The lives of others are nothing in his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. After hearing what Gong Jun said, she felt that things were even more confusing. Madam, haven't you noticed that Guan Yi and Guan Hongtian are somewhat similar? My nephew resembles my uncle, so it's not strange for them to be similar. Gong Jun smiled and shook his head. No, they're too alike. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other and immediately understood. So, Guan Yi is Guan Hongtian's son? Bailey Hongzhuang was in disbelief. Although she had heard of such a thing, she still found it hard to accept. Isn't that so? Gong Jun chuckled. At this time, Di Baichen's voice sounded. You already knew about their relationship, So you had the confidence to snatch the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine, right? Boss, you really have sharp eyes. I can't hide anything from you. Gong Jun admitted it frankly. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head helplessly. This guy was probably going to make people die without paying for it. So you're not going to participate this time? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Chapter 65-25. After leaving the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun walked toward the City Lord's mansion. They came to the realm of Chaotic Immortal to gain experience. Since there was such a good opportunity, they naturally wouldn't miss it. I'm curious about these monsters. I wonder what they look like. There was a hint of curiosity on her delicate face as her bright eyes darted around. Although the realm of Chaotic Immortal was not as big as the Immortal realm, there were many things that they had never seen before. It will start in half a month. You will know then. Di Beichun smiled faintly. We could buy a book when we go back later. Now that the monster slaying competition is near, there should be many books about this. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I've already seen many books on the way here. After all, we're not the only ones who have just come to the realm of Chaotic Immortal. The City Lord's mansion was located in the center of Shiyun City. The square courtyard was particularly eye-catching in the bustling streets. Although Shiyun City was not considered a large city in the realm of Chaotic Immortal, it was the entrance to the abandoned Immortal Forest. The flow of people was very shocking. Therefore, Shiyun City was one of the top cities among the many cities. The City Lord's mansion was majestic. 2 stone lions stood on either side of it, exuding boundless majesty. 2 groups of guards stood on either side of it in an orderly manner. Their cold faces and sharp gazes revealed the City Lord's mansion's confidence. No one dared to act rashly. At this moment, a few long tables were placed together in front of the City Lord's mansion's main gate. The tables were covered with red cloth. Many people had already formed a long line. Their names were recorded one by one. Obviously, everyone was here to sign up for the monster slaying competition. The scale of this monster slaying competition is indeed shocking. I heard that today is the 3rd day of registration. There's still so many people. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the long line and lined up behind Di Beichun. Other than cultivators who are cultivating in seclusion, most of the people who are free must have come to sign up. Di Beichun was also paying attention to the people who were registering. Among them, there were very young people, and there were also some elders. Unlike the upper realms, where the older a cultivator was, the more people feared them, the situation in the realm of chaos was the complete opposite. The younger a cultivator was, the more people feared them. This was because almost all of the cultivators here were at the Radiant Sun realm. Naturally, the younger the cultivator, the more talented and terrifying their potential would be. Therefore, when some young faces appeared, everyone would often pay more attention to them. If Xyrant and the others knew about this, they would definitely come to sign up as soon as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. They had recently separated to train and hadn't seen each other for the past few days. However, through this demon-slaying competition, it was very likely that they would meet again. They won't miss such an opportunity, Di Beichun said with a faint smile. Just as the 2 of them were lining up to register, a series of congratulatory voices suddenly came from behind. Young Master Guan, you're here to sign up too? For this kind of thing, you only need to send someone to sign up. Why would you need to come here personally? I heard that young Master Guan is cultivating in seclusion. I'm sure you'll do well in a monster slaying competition. Compliments were heard one after another, attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 65-26. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a familiar figure and couldn't help but sneer. It seemed that because Guan Yi had Guan Hongtian as his uncle, his reputation in Shiyun City was quite resounding. Guan Yi was smiling as he accepted everyone's congratulations. He knew all too well that these people were only doing this to establish a relationship with his uncle. How precious were the treasures in Wan Bao Pavilion. Even if they could get a discount, it would be a great advantage for them. Although he had suffered a loss a few days ago, it didn't affect him for long. After all, he was still doing well in Shiyun City. However, just as he was feeling extremely happy, he suddenly noticed the two proud figures in front of him, and the smile on his face stiffened. How could he be so unlucky? Originally, he wanted to avoid these two guys, so he didn't sign up on the first day. Instead, he deliberately waited for 2 days. Who would have thought that these two fellows would coincidentally come to register today as well? Guani, what's wrong with you? Why did your expression suddenly become so ugly? Beside Guani, a young man revealed a puzzled expression. Brother Bai, the person who poisoned us earlier, was that woman in front. Yin Xiaoman's eyes were filled with viciousness. Thinking of how arrogant Bailey Hongzhuang was in front of her, she couldn't swallow this anger. However, she also knew very well that she didn't have the ability to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and could only swallow this anger. Hearing Yin Xiaoman's words, Bai Luchuan also turned his gaze. Even if Yin Xiaoman didn't point it out clearly, he still saw the dazzling white figure at a glance. The willow-like woman was like a fairy in a painting. She was clearly standing in the crowd, but it was as if she was standing outside the mortal world, giving off an ethereal aura. Usually, he boasted that he had seen countless women, but compared to the woman in front of him, he understood what a real beauty was. Previously, when he heard Guani talk about it, he didn't take it to heart. He only felt that his description was too exaggerated. Now, it seemed that he wasn't exaggerating at all. On the contrary, he didn't describe her true beauty. However, he also understood that this woman was a rose with thorns. Her method of poisoning was simply appalling. So, it's the two of them. Bai Luchuan chuckled. Watch, I'll help you vent your anger in a while. As soon as these words came out, a trace of joy appeared on Yun Xiaoman's face. Big Brother Bai, is what you said true? Of course it's true. How could I lie to you? Bai Luchuan wore a smug look. Have you forgotten my relationship with City Lord Manor? Yin Xiaoman's eyes lit up. Brother Bai, you're the most capable. I believe that you will definitely be able to avenge me and Brother E. Don't worry. Bai Luchuan slowly summoned a person and whispered a few words into his ear. The person nodded and walked towards the person who was recording the name cards. After the man passed on his message, the person who recorded the name cards quietly glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichan before nodding his head. Next, we can wait to watch a good show. Bai Luchuan looked at the other party's expression and knew that his matter was done. The smile on his face also had a hint of pride. Luchuan, these two people are very difficult to deal with. If they know that we did this, it's inevitable that they will cause trouble again. Chapter 65-27. Guani, didn't you suffer loss last time? Why have you become so timid now? Bai Luchuan looked at Guan Yi with some disdain. You're a man after all. As long as you teach them a lesson, will they dare to find trouble with you in the future? Brother Bai is right. Last time, she deliberately tricked us. Maybe she really thinks we're easy to bully. If we teach them a lesson this time, not only can we vent our anger, but we can also make them fear us, Yin Xiaoman also said. Hearing this, Guan Yi nodded. He also felt very aggrieved about what happened that day. If it could be resolved, it would undoubtedly be best. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichan only glanced at Guan Yi before retracting their gazes. The previous matter had been resolved. Now, they were just strangers. Gradually, it was finally two people's turn. Name. The man's cold voice sounded. Deep Beichan, Bailey Hongzhuang. Deep Beichan replied. The conditions for registration were very simple. They only needed to write down their names and receive an identity card. This identity card would have their own information. It was also very simple to make. It was similar to the upper realm. I've noted it down. You may leave. The man waved his hand and let the two of them leave with a look of disdain. Seeing this, Deep Beichan frowned slightly. You haven't given us the identity cards yet. Your conditions don't pass. You can't register, the man said coldly. Why don't our conditions pass? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She clearly noticed that the cultivators in front only reported their names and didn't have any requirements at all. However, when it was their turn, they suddenly said that their conditions didn't pass. Wasn't this too strange? Do we, the City Lord's mansion, have to explain our actions to you? If I say you don't pass, then you don't pass. The sudden commotion immediately attracted everyone's attention. Some of the people who had participated in the demon-slaying competition more than once naturally understood that the man's words were just a cover. It couldn't even be considered an excuse. It was obvious that he was deliberately making things difficult for them. They must have offended someone, so they were targeted, right? That's someone from the City Lord's mansion. It seems these two newcomers have quite the guts. After offending the City Lord's mansion, they actually dared to sign up for the monster-slaying competition organized by the City Lord's mansion. Isn't this a provocation? Lower your voice. There are always people who seek death. Let's just watch the show. Bailey Hongzhuang originally thought that the other party was deliberately making things difficult for her. Now that she heard the comments of the crowd, she was even more certain that her judgment was not wrong. It was just that they had only been in Shiyun City for a few short days, and they had not even met anyone from the City Lord's mansion, so how could they offend them? If I say you can't pass, then you can't pass. Why do you have so many questions? Are you leaving or not? The man's expression turned cold. If you don't leave, then I can only send people to chase you away. As the man's voice fell, the guards of the City Lord's mansion immediately took a step forward, as if they were ready to take action at any time. Master, these guys are too much. Xiao Hei's eyes burned with a raging fury. They were simply looking down on people with dog eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the City Lord's mansion's forces. Then her gaze fell on Yun Xiao Man coincidentally. She saw a flash of pleasure in the latter's eyes. Chapter 65-28. Let's go. There's no point in staying here. A man couldn't help but remind them when he saw the situation. If we offend the City Lord, we'll be in trouble. Di Beichun turned to look at the man beside him. The man didn't dislike them for wasting time. Instead, he kindly reminded them, which was a little surprising. You guys must have offended by Lu Chuan, right? The man lowered his voice. By Lu Chuan, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. This was the first time she had heard of this name. Here, it's the person standing beside Guan Yi. He's the City Lord Bai's nephew. If you really want to participate, why don't you find someone to buy a nameless participation token? If you continue to stay here, be careful not to get into trouble. Thank you, brother. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Luchuan weren't sure what was going on. At this moment, the two of them completely understood. So, this matter was really caused by Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman. They thought that the previous matter would be over, but now it seemed that the other party didn't want to let it go. Di Beichun, let's go back first. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. She held Di Beichun's arm and slowly walked to the back. However, the smile didn't reach her eyes. Her ink-like eyes were filled with a cold light. Di Beichun's expression was as cold as ice. He had already made up his mind. When the demon-slaying competition began, these guys would be their hunting targets. I thought they would cause some trouble. I didn't expect them to leave with their tails between their legs. How boring. Bai Luchuan spread out his hands with a dull expression. Yin Xiaoman was also a little disappointed. She had always hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Luchuan would cause trouble in public. The City Lord's mansion would definitely not allow anyone to cause trouble here. When the time came, the two of them would definitely be at a disadvantage. They might even be punished on the spot. She never thought that the two of them would leave just like that. This made her extremely depressed. As Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Shiwen slowly left, their footsteps paused for a moment when they passed by Guan Yi and the other two, leaving behind a meaningful look. Guan Yi's heart trembled when he felt their gazes. A thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that they had already seen through everything? Brother Yi, why are you in a daze? Yin Xiaoman waved her hand in front of Guan Yi, her face showing a trace of concern. Ah, nothing. Guan Yi shook his head. I just think they might have seen through it. You're thinking too much. If he really saw through it, why would he leave without saying anything? Bai Luchuan didn't take it to heart at all. In my opinion, they know their limits. They know that it's impossible for them to fight City Lord Manor, so they tactfully left. Master, aren't we letting them off too easily if we just leave like this? Xiao Hei could not help but voice out. This situation was really too depressing. Cheap. A cold light flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. When the demon-slaying competition begins, this grudge will definitely be avenged. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. Baichen's calm face did not show any anger. However, with Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding of him, just from that slight expression, she already knew that he was angry. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.